Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just get a uh, uh, okay signal from the organizers whether the Facebook Live is working or not, and then we'll get
Okay,
started.
fine.
I hope Sir Shushuban can, if you say thumbs up, Sir Shushuban, I will start. Is it working? Okay. Uh, I think we are good and we are connected to Facebook Live now. And we can start the webinar as our principal, honorable principal also permitted us to begin the webinar. Respected Professor Satyadev Poddar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, MBB University, Agartala, India. Respected Father Benny K. John, our beloved Principal of Holy Cross College. Professor Daniel Crosby, King's College, USA. Professor Chris Scarborough, King's College, USA. Professor Marcin from Poznan University of Medical Sciences, Poland. Professor Chandrika Bosu Majumdar from Tripura University. Professor Seema Dhawan. Dr. Father Shaji MLCAC, our Vice Principal. Respected participants, my dear colleagues, friends, scholars, students, and everyone else who is listening to us through this social media and online platform. A very good morning to you all. We have gathered here through this online platform to listen to our speakers and the respected guest speaking about the education system which will be and which is at the moment during this pandemic. Dear participants, you all know that the topic and the theme of today's webinar is post-COVID-19 education system, opportunities and strategies for collaboration. This is an initiative by the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Holy Cross College, IQAC. We all know that the pandemic, COVID-19, has created a different world for the learners, the teachers, for educators, and for all sectors and for everybody around the world. And the way government, education institutions, organizations, people used to think, perform, work, their lifestyle, their work style, work culture, everything is affected due to this pandemic created by the virus COVID-19. Before this pandemic came and before we witnessed that, we know that we still had online education going on in various institutions in different parts of the globe, including India. Online education was very much part of the education system, but obviously we can strongly say that it was not like well accepted by all the institutions. Some institutions did it half-heartedly. There are many scholars who are saying that the virtual world is the world where we have to teach next. The online education may be the future education system that we have to experience. We all knew it, but we didn't know that it will come like this, and suddenly we all will be into it, whether willingly or unwillingly. We have to be part of this online education system teaching learning process. We know that about 60 million students across the globe are limited to home during these crucial months like February, March, April, May, June, July, all these months. We generally see a flurry of curricular and assessment activities. There are online classes, tests, assessments, and activities, admissions, exams, all are taken online. And we are learning a lot about the online platform and all this information that are available. And I personally learned a lot. Even the Google Meet tool that we are using today for this webinar is something that we are experiencing in a rigorous way, in a much better way during this pandemic. We are conducting all the classes online throughout the world. And I can say that whether we want or not, we are into it. Now the question comes, after this pandemic is over or during this pandemic, whether the system will remain same, will go back to the future system where everything will be online, or will remain like the previous classroom teaching system. This remains a big question. We have noticed there are three different types of education or waves of education system in India. We had Gurukul system, we had a traditional way of teaching students, we have got online and open learning system, and I think the present type of system we can say education 4.0. Education 1, education we had Gurukul system, 2.0 maybe the traditional system, open and distance learning we can say 3.0, and we can call this new online platform a 4.0 education system, which has many positive aspects as well as many shortcomings. When we are discussing about all these things in Holy Cross College, we thought, why not we should come together and we discuss with the learned people, and we get to know from the learned people about the education system that exists now during this pandemic and that will be coming in future. This is how we have got the idea of organizing this webinar. And I'm very grateful to everyone who is part of this webinar. For all the listeners, I want to update you about that. We have got a huge response from across the country and abroad for this webinar. We have got 439 registrations from 27 states out of 28 states of India, 2 union territories. We have got so many education institutions participating in. We have teachers participant, professors, scholars, students. There are people in this group who are from different streams: arts, commerce, science, medical students, engineering students, law students, management students, mass communication students. So you can say that it's a group of people who belongs to almost all different domains of education. And I'm sure we will have a very good experience during this webinar today. I wish all the best to all the speakers, to the organizers, and to all the participants for this webinar. May we all have an enriching experience. Thank you very much. Now I request Father Benny, our beloved principal, to come in and welcome our dignitaries today. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Pankaj. Good morning to you all. It's my privilege and joy to say a word of welcome to all of you. I'll be very brief because Dr. Pankaj, Academic Dean and IQAC Coordinator of Holy Cross College, has given us a very brief and yet detailed, comprehensive introduction to this seminar. Especially thank him and congratulate him and his team. They have worked hard, especially he with his scholarly approach and contact with all scholarly fraternity here around and from the globe. We know from around the globe we have outstanding scholars, professors from expertise from the field speaking to us. And we are very privileged, as we heard, we have a large number of teachers, scholars, professionals, and large gathering of students to attend this seminar, especially a very relevant topic.
I'm sorry, I think we lost Father Benny's connection. Today the weather is not very good this side, and we are trying to get connected with Father. I request all of you to understand the situation. This is one of the shortcomings of the online education, most probably. We are trying to get back Father Benny. I think he's joined again. Father, can you hear me? Father, your mic is off.
Yeah, I think it is going on and off because today weather is not very good. I am getting disconnected now and then. Sorry for that.
Now we can hear you.
Okay, I will carry on and be brief. I was speaking about Professor Daniel Class B, Chair of the Faculty Council, King's College, USA. Dr. Marcin, Associate Professor, Head of Philosophy of Mental Health Unit, Department of Social Sciences and Humanities, Poznań University of Medical Sciences from Poland. We have Professor Christopher Scarborough. He was with us last week also. Thank you, sir, for being once again with us. Professor from Department of History, King's College, USA. We have Professor Chandriya Basu Majumdar, Dean, Faculty of Arts and Commerce, Tripura University, West Tripura, India. We have Professor Seema Dhawan, Professor, Department of Education, NHB, Garhwal Central University, Uttarakhand, India. And we have eminent scholars and professors, and many of you, hundreds of you are waiting online to listen to them. I wouldn't take much more time. A warm, hearty welcome to all of you. Thank you for your time. We are eagerly waiting to hear from you and share our knowledge and friendship with you. Thank you very much. On and on. Thank you. Over to you, Sir Pankaj.
Thank you, Father. Thank you for your welcome address. And now I request Dr. Sushovan Sengupta, Assistant Coordinator, IQAC Holy Cross College, to introduce our respected guest.
Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Satyadev Poddar, Vice Chancellor of MBB University. Professor Poddar has completed his Master's in History and PhD from Varanasi Hindu University. Professor Poddar is a well-known academician in India for his great work and number of papers that he has published that is present in different books and book chapters. Professor Poddar has been head of the Department of History, Tripura University, for 8 years, and as well as he was the director for 4 years of Center of Gandhian Studies, Tripura University. Professor Poddar was the coordinator of Manuscript Resource Center under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, Tripura University, and he was the Dean of Faculty of Arts and Commerce for 3 years in Tripura University. He has completed numbers of research papers in different national and international journals and reputed books. He has completed 3 research projects and also conducted different research refresher courses, workshops, lectures, and symposias. Now, I request Professor Poddar to address all of us his keynote address. Thank you.
May I request Honorable Vice Chancellor, MBB University, Professor Satyadev Poddar sir, to deliver our chief guest today for today's program, to deliver his keynote address, please.
Sir Poddar sir's mic is off.
Sir, your mic is off, sir. Sir, your mic is off.
Am I audible?
Now audible, sir. Welcome, sir.
Good morning to all Indian and foreign participants. Respected Dr. Father Benny K. John, CSC, Principal, Holy Cross College. Guest speakers, Professor Daniel Class B, Chair of the Faculty Council, King's College, PA, USA. Professor Chandrika Basu Majumdar, Professor of Political Science, Dean Faculty of Arts and Commerce, Tripura University. Professor Christopher Scarborough, Department of History, King's College, PA, USA. Professor Seema Dhawan, Department of Education, Himbati Nandan Bahuguna, Garhwal Central University, Uttarakhand. Dr. Marcin Moskalavic, Associate Professor, Head of Philosophy of Mental Health, Unit, Department of Social Sciences and Humanities, Poznań University of Medical Sciences, Poland. Dr. Father Saji, ML, CSC, Vice Principal and Administrator, Holy Cross College. Dr. Pankaj Chakravarti, Academic Dean and IQAC Coordinator, Holy Cross College. Technical staff of webinar, participants, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, I extend my heartiest thanks to the organizer of the international webinar on post-COVID-19 higher education system, opportunities and strategies for collaboration, being organized by Internal Quality Assurance Cell under the leadership of Dr. Pankaj Chakravarti and all his teams, and who has given me opportunity to be the part of distinguished panelists of this webinar. I am feeling really honored to address this August online gathering. The topic chosen for discussion is very much relevant, and it reflects the visionary approach of Holy Cross College family, because discussing anything about post-COVID-19 impact and strategies will be imperfect and immature, particularly at a time when people say COVID-19 has not reached its maximum height. It is certainly a wise step which Holy Cross College has initiated through webinar in order to explore the possible strategies to address the issues of higher education system being impacted by COVID-19. I will try to restrict my deliberation on 4 issues. That is, what are the ideals of higher education system, how COVID-19 impacted those ideals of higher education, what are the opportunities that evolved due to COVID-19, and lastly, what will be the strategies for collaboration to maintain the basic ideals of higher education. One of the features of higher education institution is to provide ample opportunities for prosperous career, and it also helps to improve the overall quality of life. But this is possible only when universities and colleges are running on its set ideals and motto. In the ideal academic setting, scholars have the time and resources to search for truth within their fields. Scholars get freedom to pursue all ideas, those that are popular and those that are novel, those that are probable and those that are improbable. Respect for knowledge and expertise are valued highly by the students and faculties. And innovation are forced, and that enable individuals to challenge existing beliefs and develop new ideas and understanding. Academic institutions are known for their meritocratic ideals, and accordingly, all the students, irrespective of descent and prospects, are on a completely equal footing. And lastly, inclusiveness determines the meritocracy of any higher educational institutions. The spread of COVID-19 has affected grossly the above ideals and mottos of higher education system. The most common impact of COVID-19 on research has been the cancelling of international and national travel and the cancellation of scientific projects based on science and humanities are in danger of not being completed. Either the staff cannot access the necessary laboratories and libraries. But this crisis may lead to a reorientation of research and more focus on health and societal issues in general. In terms of opportunities, the current crisis would lead to an increase in funding for research, particularly in relation to strengthening health system, but also in relation to the socio-economic and cultural impacts of COVID-19. More scientific knowledge is required to better understand the current pandemic and to respond similar other crises in the future. We have to develop research on disaster management and develop more knowledge about unknown pathogens. Research on climate and the inequalities following COVID-19 are to be prioritized further in furtherance, and strategies for collaboration are to be finalized by the government and other educational stakeholders. It is indeed necessary that we have to generalize the new opportunities of research which COVID-19 has provided into accomplishing the ideals of creativity, innovation of any higher education system. Enrollment ratio of any higher education institution will be hard hit post COVID-19. A large number of students who desire to enroll in universities abroad, especially in countries affected by the pandemic, the US, the UK, Australia, and China, have now been barred from leaving those countries. If the situation persists in the long run, a decline in the demand for international higher education is expected. There is a possibility of long-term glooming in financial measures to combat the health organized global recession, which may be lead to decline of student enrollment. The financial loss of higher education due to disruption in enrollment is a great threat, and that will certainly affect the merit and inclusive ideals of higher education. As a strategy, physical international student mobility may be strategically converted into virtual mobility. Collaboration online learning may be explored as an alternative method in place of physical student mobility. This may safeguard internationalization. The bigger concern on everybody's mind is the effect of post-COVID-19 in the employment rate. The Center for Monitoring Indian Economics estimates on unemployment shot up from 8.4% in mid-March to 23% in early April, and the urban unemployment rate to 30.9%. And it is expected it will be growing more in future. A multi-pronged strategy is necessary to manage the crisis of unemployment. Our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, has given the slogan of Atmanirbhar Bharat. By utilizing the local resources, it will not only check the unemployment, but also make India a fit India to compete the global economy. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi further says that local will be the global, and in this regard, we can remember our father of nation, Mahatma Gandhi, who also talked about the tapping of local resources and propagated the philosophy of Gram Swaraj to make India economically viable and capable to feed the entire population of the country during colonial context. Everyone will be employed if education is an all-around drawing out of the best body, mind, and spirit. Education, we call it Nai Talim of Mahatma Gandhi, who is decided on 3 H's. H means the head, learning to know. H, the second H, hand, learning to earn livelihood. And third H, heart, learning to be. I think new strategy is required in post-COVID-19 to make education more vocational and innovative. Collaboration of locally based stakeholders, customary practices of region, and ecology of locality should be taken into consideration to make India global India. The COVID-19 has affected the teaching, learning, and assessment methodologies. Classroom teaching has been replaced by distance learning and teaching. The shift from face-to-face to distance learning has created lots of challenges, particularly the ability of technical infrastructure, competencies, and pedagogies for distance learning and the field of study. Only a handful of private schools could adopt online teaching methods. Their low-income private government school counterparts, on the other hand, have completely shut down for not having access to e-learning solutions. The students, in addition to the missed opportunities for learning, no longer have access to healthy meals during this time and are subject to economic and social stress. COVID-19 has given opportunity to use technology as a means of teaching method, and we are gradually becoming accustomed to it. And as we have no option left, we have to choose between no education and online education. Certainly, majority will choose online education, and gradually people started realizing the positive aspects of online teaching. Earlier, we were confined to the teaching of small classes, and now it has taken the shape of mass orientation. The horizon of education become more inclusive by withering away classroom structure based on caste, creed, language, and religion. We can realize the seed of universalization of education through online classes. Though online teaching does not address the ethos of social mingling, which is found in classroom structure, teachers as a role model for students are not realized in online classes. There is no provision of attitude defenses. There is no provision of impaired students in online classes. Classes suffer from attitude deficiency syndrome. Whether students like classes, our classes or not, we don't bother. Attention of students during online classes are not guaranteed, and there is every possibility that they leave the classes whenever they feel uncomfortable from teachers. There is no doubt that online classes has promoted cybercrime to a great extent, and lack of physical activities and absence of peer group are one of the factors for the divergence of attention of students in online classes. If we have to survive with post-COVID hard realities, where our legs have been broken and replaced with technology-prone steel leg, we have to move and work with changed situation in a befitting manner. And for that, strategies are required, and collaboration of government, management, and people at large are required to get the dividend of higher education. University course creators should work closely with their IT departments to ensure their programs and are able to be supported online. Open source digital learning solutions and learning management software should be adopted so teachers can conduct teaching online. The Diksha platform, which reach across all states in India, can be further strengthened to ensure accessibility to the students. Inclusive learning solutions, especially for the most vulnerable and marginalized, need to be safeguarded. With a rapid increase of mobile internet users in India, technology is enabling ubiquitous access and personalization of education even in the remotest parts of the country. This can change the higher education system and increase the effectiveness of learning and teaching, giving students and teachers multiple options to choose from. Strategies for collaborations are required to prepare the higher education sector for the evolving demand-supply trends across the globe, particularly those related to the global mobility of students and faculty and improving the quality of and demand for higher studies in India. Further, immediate measures are required to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on job offers, internship programs, and research projects. In brief, post-COVID-19 will be a virgin area with new opportunities and possibilities. And in order to imbibe the basic ideals and motives of higher education system, as we have to look into cost-effective approach of higher education. It is talked about that Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Management, universities and colleges are suffering from shortage of faculties and lack of quality are witnessed everywhere. if we can make the strategies for streamlining the online education, for providing equal opportunities to everyone, I think that will be the heyday of universalization of education, for improving economic prosperity, social cohesion of the people around the world, and promoting the ethos of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I again extend my thanks to Holy Cross College family, who has given me opportunity to be in the midst of post-COVID, to be in the midst of discussion of post-COVID society and changing role of higher education system. I again thank to everyone, every participant for patient hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your keynote address. It was really very enriching and encouraging, and I'm sure that all the participants have learned a lot from this, and you have set the tone for this webinar, sir. It was always great to listen to you, and today again I think after listening to you, there are many things that are clear, and I can say that you have set the tone for the webinar in a very right manner, sir. It was a pleasure to listen to you, sir. Now, I request Madam Momita to come in to welcome, to introduce our next speaker. And with that, I thank Professor Satyadeva Poddar, sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor, MBB University, for accepting our invitation in spite of his busy schedule, and for being with us today, and for delivering such a wonderful, touching, and meaningful keynote address. Thank you so much, sir. Over to Madam Momita.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dr. Daniel Clasby. Dr. Daniel Clasby is an associate professor of history and chair of the Faculty Council at King's College in Pennsylvania. He's a historian of modern Jewish history and studies Jewish assimilation and religious identity in the Mediterranean and in Israel. His work has been recognized by the Association for Jewish Studies, the United States Holocaust Museum, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Recently, Dr. Clasby was named a Summer Institute Fellow in Israel Studies at Brandeis University. In Dr. Clasby's capacity as chair of the King's College Faculty Council, he has been centrally involved in a number of campus-wide institutional initiatives, including the revision of the college's general education curriculum, directing the college Global Studies program, and developing assessment plans for national accreditation. Recent work has been almost exclusively dedicated to helping develop the King's College's COVID-19 reopening plans. These include serving on an instructional task force dedicated to creating guidance for socially distant classrooms, as well as hybrid and online formats. Dr. Clasby is also involved in the college to mobilize better health and safety plans. Today, the title of Dr. Clasby's talk is New Wine in Old Bottles, Reopening and Reimaging the University in the Era of COVID. We welcome Dr. Clasby and thank you for joining us. The session is yours. Over to Dr. Clasby.
Thank you very much. And
Before Dr. Clasby, Daniel starts, first is apologies to all the participants from abroad. If you don't pronounce your name properly, it's the accent difference. And second thing is some participants are saying that there's connection issue. We request you to please cooperate with us because it's a very bad weather this side, and somehow we are trying to be connected in. We're also recording, and this recording also will be available after the webinar also. Over to Dr. Clasby, and sorry for interrupting.
That's okay, Pankaj. Can you hear me? Am I?
You're audible.
Yes, okay. Okay. Well, thank you again for inviting me today, and thank you, everyone at Holy Cross, for bringing us together on this important topic. Pankaj asked me to speak about reopening plans. I can, I think, probably give you a good view of what it looks like in the United States currently, and I hope that some of our anecdotes will be relevant in India. We are probably, by most accounts, still only at the beginning of the pandemic, and already punditry of all sorts have been confidently sketching out the new normal, a world in which every sector of life, from workplaces to the way we shake hands, will be transformed. And one of these sectors that is likely to undergo significant transformation is higher education, which in the United States is now referred to quite commonly as a high-risk industry, especially in the American media, not unlike Macy's department stores are high-risk industries now that so much of our shopping has gone online. And so colleges and universities are debating how or whether to hold classes in the fall, and at the same time thinking about their long-term future. And the prognostications about that have run the gamut from sheer catastrophe. Perhaps some third of US colleges and universities will close their doors, to those who see something perhaps more optimistic in the crisis, an opportunity for colleges to become more learning-centered and sophisticated in their digital offerings. No matter what, the narrative is clearly right now that college as we knew it is over. And I would ask the question, why is that? Well, in large part in the United States, it's a problem of our own making. It's both right now a consequence of, I would say, fairly dismal national leadership and a response to the pandemic. But it's also that for the past probably 40 years, as long as I've been alive, we have slowly been collapsing the public university as a public trust. So to take you back briefly to some punditry, quote, crises lead to accelerations, and this is the best chance ever for online learning, unquote. This is a take from Sebastian Thrun, who's a founder of the online tech training company Udacity, which has emerged in the crisis as a kind of education fortune teller in the United States, trying to apply market principles and their particular online version of education into United States colleges and universities. Scott Galloway, a fairly famous professor for TED Talks and for someone who actually touts having predicted Amazon's acquisition of Whole Foods, tells us in a widely circulated New York Magazine interview that we're heading for a, quote, survival of the biggest, unquote, in which tech companies will team up with elite universities like a Stanford, like a Harvard, like an MIT to dominate higher education, while the multitude of schools that educate students in the United States, particularly those with less name recognition and financial security, simply vanish. There's a critique of college that's underlying these kinds of promises by punditry. There's no question that colleges and universities in the United States are unusual institutions. Their business models have evolved in a market economy that does not have a great analog anywhere else in the world, frankly. Our elite schools are super expensive and serve the super wealthy. Our public land-grant universities remain in service to people of all walks of life and sponsor some of the more advanced research on the planet. But universities across the United States are also places that bundle together a lot of different functions, including serving their local communities. They take on high overhead, high personnel costs, long-standing rules and traditions that keep them from certain kinds of innovation. And when colleges add technology, as we did this spring at King's College, where I work, instead of reducing costs, we just added to expectations. And so no wonder an enterprise like higher education in the United States is so ripe for disruption. Now, are they right? Well, maybe so. Maybe they're right that the pandemic is likely to shake some things up. There absolutely will be changes. We have seen in the United States some institutions have already declared financial exigency or bankruptcy even, and will unfortunately be closing their doors. And the pandemic has obviously revealed, alongside other social crises, deep inequity issues within higher education. But, and if there is some light at the end of that tunnel, I'll quote Michael Roth, who wrote in a recent Political article, quote, "When it comes to the end of college as we know it, however, we've seen this movie before and college has survived it. The last time America was swept by this particular combination of economic collapse and technophilia was in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008, and that too brought predictions of massive change to higher education," unquote. And he notes that technology sort of was touted in a number of publications in 2009 and 2010 as the wave of the future, that if you didn't get on board with the use of technology and partner with technology companies, you were likely to go extinct. And the example that I would give is the mania that you saw in the early 2010s over the MOOC, or Massive Online Open Course, which was set to displace college itself. And approximately 10 years later, MOOCs have not done what they were predicted to do. So I think it's worth stepping back and maybe being more careful about our predictions, and relying perhaps in our predictions for the future, and planning for that future to do so with a calmer head. University campuses sit classic majors next to economics majors. And they do so in neuroscience classes, and they do so at basketball games. It's a lived experience of diversity, unlike too many other places in our still very segregated society in the United States. And it offers the kinds of encounters that lead to real transformative learning. As Roth suggested, I'll go back to him, campuses aren't just a collection of climbing walls and parties. They're a rare venue for bringing together people open to discoveries about themselves and the world. And so what I'm going to just suggest today are 3 proposals that we should keep in mind as we think about the post-COVID era. And I titled this talk, Old Wine into New Bottles, which is an etymological reference to Jesus's parable of new wine into old wine skins. And if you were to pull that parable from Matthew 9:17, Jesus said, "Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved." Perhaps that parable speaks to the larger reality for higher education in the United States. We do run the risk of our wine running out and our bottles being spoiled. But the risk in that regard seems less to me to make good on what we do well, to improve upon our central missions, to meet the crisis head on, than it does to roll the dice and seek out the newest fad or trend, brace our decisions as we prepare for the future on the coldest of market calculations, and fall prey to the lure of technologists who believe that as gatekeepers of the digital world, they have the only answers to save us. So I'd like to just propose a few relatively modest suggestions that I hope will make for some good conversation. And these are suggestions that prioritize partnership in some broad sense of that word. So the first thing I would propose is that colleges and universities need to seriously address systemic inequalities. In the United States, inequalities remain the great problem facing higher education. And suddenly this is very visible. Displaced onto Zoom in the spring of 2020, many of us saw the disparities among our homebound students. They're better off students, checked in with new laptops, with great Wi-Fi, and seem to be surrounded by quite nice surroundings, while our less well-off students struggled for access, they struggled for privacy, and they juggled the responsibility of caring for families. Higher education can reinforce privilege and division, or they can be a vehicle, I think, for social mobility and cohesion. And so I think one thing we need to do as we return to campus this fall or next spring, whenever that date comes, and it cannot come soon enough from a personal perspective, it cannot come soon enough. Colleges can learn some of these lessons from this recent past. So for one, in the United States, I would recommend that colleges not require standardized tests for admission in the coming couple of years. What we know is that families who have lower incomes, families from racial minorities in the United States, often do not have the luxury of money for tutors and organized test prep on relatively pseudo-objective exams to get them into schools to lead to some sort of social climbing. They lack that kind of social capital. Another thing we can do, I think, to bolster our support for low-income and first-generation students, especially those of color in the United States, who are frankly disproportionately bearing the brunt of COVID-19, is to make sure that colleges and universities across the states are places that promote stability, security, housing, but also access to food and access to internet and access to the necessary technology to bring these students online. I'll just reference Anthony Abraham Jack, who is an assistant professor at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, who wrote a recent piece in Inside Higher Ed, who said, quote, "If you don't have a room to call your own, a space to work, if you don't have the internet, you can't be a student taking full classes in the United States. You simply can't try to do well by doing your homework outside of a Starbucks," unquote, meaning that the Starbucks becomes the one place in the world where the student can find the technological access necessary to do well in class. And so I think, just as a last thing to say to this issue of addressing systemic inequalities, one more idea or proposal is to ensure, at the very least, that internet access is equal and affordable and available to students who need it. What we've seen as we've turned over all sectors of our society, from schooling to government services to medical care and child care, is that all of the things that we thought we needed to perform in person are now happening online. And what we're seeing are the deep rifts between the haves and have-nots in our society. And so I'll end there by suggesting that we need to partner with our local communities and develop initiatives to create broadband, to put it into rural communities, especially across the United States, where the biggest gap between work and need that access, so that we build up partnerships that over time reach students at risk and in need. It seems ethically responsible for our communities. The second proposal I'd like to suggest today is the idea that we should reject the campus as a bubble. Higher education, if nothing else, I think, should have learned from this pandemic that the bubble of campus life is an illusion. Rather than seeing 8 semesters away from home as a break from quote unquote real life, which is often how American students view the college experience, colleges and universities should find ways to connect their students to the towns they live in and to a country that needs their participation in public life. As an example, at King's College, one of the things we've done is introduce a big problem or big idea interdisciplinary seminar. That work is going slowly, but we are trying to bring together a list of programming experiences and courses that help our students make good on their questions about the world around them, the society in which they live, to prepare them for a life after college, and to open the gates, right, of a world in which, again, for our students at King's College, social capital can at times, a lack of it, hold them back. King's College is slowly building those online, those learning communities, and we are going to have to do some of them online this coming semester. But they are a start to build into the curriculum a way to show students something of the world around them. Of course, we need to create other kinds of modalities. That's the word, at least, we're using in the United States right now to talk about how we reach students in different venues, whether it's online, whether it's a hybrid teaching model, whether it's the traditional classroom experience. And so one of the things that King's College is thinking about doing, and this is a projected sort of, it's a plan that is far off into the future, but is opening up a physical and occupational therapy clinic in the middle of our downtown. We live in a city that has people at high risk, with high risk health problems, with a lot of what we call comorbidities. And King's College has increasingly a student body that wants to work in medical fields. And we think that a kind of partnership with the community will help King's College deliver a necessary service. It will provide for us ways for our students to gain practical clinical experience that is becoming increasingly difficult in a world in which hospitals are closing down or focusing on COVID pandemic treatment and keeping our students from those systems. I think there are other kinds of similar local and regional works programs that we can purport. I'll suggest another one. Our education field has been very much hurt in the state of Pennsylvania. We expect a 5% decline over the course of the next 10 years in our high school graduates, which means that as we have need for fewer classroom spaces at the secondary education level, as we have need for fewer schools, we will have need for fewer teachers, and yet that population will still be there. And so those kinds of that push-pull, that pressure on the one hand to deliver a service in the public good, and the pressure of budgets means that we need to find some alternative routes to getting our students into schools and helping their communities learn. And so one of the things we're also going to try to pilot in the next couple of years is what I would call a tutor corps, in which we would put students to work in elementary and secondary schools to help basically solve a lack of tutors and extra academic help that's much needed in our efforts and in our secondary education efforts as a country. And in many communities, in fact, that issue of need outside of the classroom in secondary education situations means that we have a hard time getting a local base of teacher candidates to go through the process and accreditation, et cetera. And so this sort of tutor corps would be in the interest, again, of serving the local and in a kind of hope that education will stick with some of these tutors, and they will go on to then get the degrees and the accreditation and eventually move into these schools as full-time teachers. I'll finish with one last example here before I suggest another proposal, and that is the idea of a structured gap year. Gap years and structured group internships have been growing in popularity, and they often result in students who return to campus with more focus and more maturity. Now, I struggle with gap years at the conceptual level because they're traditionally, for wealthy students, they are traditionally unstructured. And they have no clear revenue stream or connection even necessarily to colleges which need to keep their student population up. But I think if colleges designed them with careful intention, the idea of a gap year could be improved. You could combine, as an example, existing data analytics, leadership, sociology, or public policy courses with a problem that your community might be facing, and let students work on it for a year and have the right professors who, with the right expertise, shepherd, guide, nurture those students towards a culminating project. And if nothing else, what you're doing, I think, with that kind of structured gap year idea is you're keeping students engaged. You're sending them away with a goal. And of course, in the era of COVID, this kind of gap year could be, in fact, virtual. I'll end here with my third proposal, and that is the idea that we need to embrace diversity in our partnerships. While the Trump administration recently in the United States agreed to rescind a visa policy that would have forced our international students to enroll in in-person classes or leave the country, the act itself of creating that policy likely further damaged American higher education's global reputation. And in fact, I would argue it sent the message that the United States was an unwelcome place for students from overseas. And with normal visa processing still suspended at many consulates across the world, and US restrictions on foreign travel, most notably from China, which traditionally has been, at least in the last 10 years, the largest source of overseas students in the United States, remaining in place, international student enrollments are expected to dry up, and they have done so at King's College. We, in effect, have 0 international students right now as part of our incoming freshman class for fall 2020. So I think underneath that political decision that was admittedly rolled back, the systemic issues at play are a real reminder that maintaining civil intellectual diversity takes work, and the campus is a wonderful place to build the habit of listening to those with views that are different from one's own. As an example, I think that you can encourage what's kind of called or referred to as study abroad at home for international students, possibly through partnerships with other campuses. As an example, about an hour south of King's College in the state of Pennsylvania in the United States, Lehigh University, which sits in the town of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, doesn't have its own campuses abroad, but it is making arrangements with international partners to serve as, quote, unquote, Lehigh in residence students. And these sites will admit international students who may not be able to make it to Lehigh University's campus. And under the plan, they would take pre-approved courses at partner institutions. And the in-residence program that Lehigh has set up would be tailored specifically to freshman students who are likely to need a certain level of nurturing and mentoring as they travel eventually to the United States to study and learn in a very different circumstance than they are likely used to. Another idea would be to increase our virtual global partnerships. I think thanks to digital technology, we can form a global network and we can have conversations with people on the ground in different countries, certain prognosticators who, are worried perhaps that the pandemic is going to lead to an impoverished educational experience in the name of efficiency, in the name of austerity. I think, if anything, the lived experience right now of our social isolation is reinforcing the importance of interacting with others, certainly in physical proximity, even if you have to wear a mask, but in a digital space too. In short, we're finding more and more that we need each other. And the best way to get through this pandemic is to come together rather than go it alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan, for a nice presentation. And I'm sure there will be a lot of queries and questions maybe. Can I take the questions with you and Chris together if you have some time? because our next speaker, Dr. Marcin, he has something really urgent to go for, and he needs to start immediately. We were supposed to introduce him through Madam Momita, but due to scarcity of time, we'll directly go to him so that he can present. Dear participants, we have with us now Dr. Marcin. I hope that I'm pronouncing his name properly. Associate Professor, Head of Philosophy of Mental Health Unit, Department of Social Sciences and Humanities, Poznan University of Medical Sciences, Poland. He'll be talking on lead time and space of higher education after COVID-19, challenges and opportunities. As you have asked, we are cutting the rest of the introduction. Over to you, Dr. Marcin.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see me?
We can hear you, we can see you.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation, and sorry for being in such a rush, but it's very early in Poland at this moment, and my child is going to wake up, and I want to cut down the chances that she would jump here behind me during my talk. I'm going to share a PowerPoint now, and you tell me if you can see it, please. Can you see my PowerPoint? Okay. Could I have some feedback whether you can see the PowerPoint slides at the moment?
We can see.
Yes, we can.
You can see. Okay, so I'll start. So I'm going to speak about live time and space of higher education after COVID-19, and briefly what I would like to address are, well, first I'm going to introduce these concepts, which are philosophical concepts. I'm a philosopher, concepts of live time and live space. And then I'm going to speak briefly about the impact of the current situation or higher education in teaching and research, based mostly on my own personal experience of teaching and research and my departmental colleagues. And I see certain challenges there and certain opportunities, many of which have been already spoken about by by the former speakers, but I'm going to address them hopefully from a slightly different angle, at least a different cultural angle. So as you know, I'm in Poland, which is in Central Europe. It's a mid-sized country of 40 million in Central Eastern Europe. And when it comes to statistics, here you have the latest data from yesterday. We've been relatively safe when it comes to impact and consequences of the COVID in this country, and this is largely due to very strict measures imposed centrally by the central government. You have local governments here and the central government, and the central government very early in mid-March imposed these restrictions, starting with a very severe lockdown that has been, well, quite detrimental to mental health, but ultimately very successful. So globally, we are 95th in terms of total cases per 1 million population, and India in comparison is very close, despite the differences in size and population. It's 103, whereas United States, as you know, is closer to the top. Even better when it comes to deaths per 1 million population. We are the 70th country. And when it comes to Europe, the whole Europe, not just the EU, but also countries that are not part of the European Union, we are 41st in total cases and 34th in terms of deaths per 1 million population, which is really good because the number of countries in this statistics is 48. And in terms of testing, it's not bad either. So I think the overall picture of this aspect of how the COVID impacts us is quite maybe not optimistic, but relatively optimistic. Now, this context is relevant for what I'm going to speak about, because this is about our experiences in this culture, in this city and country, because I have colleagues and friends in other departments, and I have I'm familiar with what is going on in there as well. But you have to bear in mind when I will be speaking that these restrictions were really quite severe. We spent months in lockdown at homes. We've been teaching from home. The universities were also closed down. Working spaces were not accessed, so everyone has to work from his own place, and this basically continues up to this very moment. So why live time and live space? If you think, what do these concepts mean? Just briefly. Clock time is, of course, the time that you can see on your clock, and I have about 17 minutes of clock time left, and this is something that is objective, uniform. All the moments have a fixed order. It goes smoothly towards the future with a constant pace. It's homogeneous. All the moments of clock time are equivocal. Whereas live time, the most important thing about live time is that it operates from the perspective of the now. We are always in the now, and this present moment in which we live constantly is important for coordination and for intersubjectivity, for contact with other people. Also, live time can be accelerated or decelerated. You can have the feeling that it speeds up or slows down. You can mental time travel. You can go back and forward in time in both directions. And how you live it is relative to the position of the subject that experiences it. And the same goes for lived space, where instead of now you have the here. And we all share the same now at the moment, despite being in different time zones. And the previous speaker is going to sleep soon, I guess, and I just have woken up earlier than usually. So despite being in different time zones, we share the same present, but we don't share the same space. Our here is different. And it's also important for coordination and subjectivity. And importantly, this lived space can be extended or constricted experientially, because lived, the term lived, indicates it's how we experience it in a very basic, pre-reflective sense and also embodied sense. So lived space can be attainable or unattainable. It can be symbolically divided into domains, like private and public, to start with the most basic, accessible or inaccessible, restricted space, very relevant these days. And these two categories, of course, they are interrelated. And these are not, time is not an extra dimension, but it's a dimension of lived time space, and space is not an extra dimension, it's a dimension of lived time space as well. In this sense, there are two sides of the same coin, and they are actively and dynamically created. And this is very relevant. It's not, I'm a philosopher, so apologies for this maybe too long introduction for some of you, but the important thing is that you do not apprehend objective time and objective be checked in the future. That could be re-accessed. It is stored on the servers. You can go back to it yourself. Your boss can go back to it. Your dean can go back to it. You can check your employees, how they have been doing, and this changes this temporal quality of this distant learning. When it comes to time, we all have the experience, well, probably, of the stagnation of lived space-time, that something has ended. The past is different and seems far away. We are entering the new world, but we don't know what it's really going to be. And the future is still unknown. This webinar is a way to prepare for the unknown future. But this is combined precisely with the unknown being constantly at the horizon. We don't know what it's going to be, but we have to live with it. filling in between of something that has been lost and something that is unknown. So we live in unpredictability. Our future is unpredictable. The paradox here is that what is mostly unknown, unpredictable, constantly remains with us. We think when this will end, how to prepare to what's next, how to prepare for the next term. And the less we know how it's going to look like, the more we think about it. When it comes to calendar orientations, these are all different aspects of what phenomenologists, the aspects that phenomenologists distinguish as aspects of lived time. Calendar orientation is one of them. During lockdown, people have very strange calendar experiences, basically being lost. What I call the eternal Saturday experience, because you was neither fully working nor fully resting, especially for people who have kids and are in a lockdown with their families. They have to divide their working time for working and childcare and resting in time. It was all mixed up. So this loss of orientation also demanded constant and increased orientation to remind oneself to what time of the day it is, what day of the week it is. Did I miss that class? Did I answer the person's call? That created a lot of confusion. Fortunately, now this measure has been lowered, but we are all preparing for the new wave as people in different countries as well. So I think it's gonna come back. When it comes to the feeling of the speed of time, when you are in this unusual situation, unused to situation, you have also a paradoxical feeling of time both dragging and flying. Now, according to one of the popular models of how we experience time subjectively, depending on stimulation and repetition of events in the outside environment, you can say we have the experience of prospective boredom, which is the feeling of time being very, very slow, and retrospective acceleration. This added to the experience of being lost in the calendar time, because people were not sure how long has it lasted. Was it 2 weeks already or 2 months? I'm in the middle of this term, or I'm more towards the end. And finally, in objective terms of having more or less time, do we have more or less time? Well, it depends, because of changing of activities and of the pace. This has been completely reoriented. So basic gains were on commuting, of course, to work, so you can gain an hour or two per day, depending where you live. But you lose also a lot of time on adaptation. And my feeling is that we so far have lost much more than we have gained, because adaptation is always a painful process. This, of course, led to new challenges in teaching and in research, but also created some opportunities. So I'm going to say a few words about the challenges and the opportunities. One of the paradoxes is that academic infrastructure, no matter how technically advanced it would be, suddenly physical infrastructure appeared insufficient. For example, in this country, we have a 2-meter distance principle. You can't have a class unless you are unable to provide space of 2 meters in between the students. And even the most modern classrooms that costed a lot of money suddenly are unavailable, inaccessible, restricted for teaching. And the new measure has been just introduced this week. We are not going to have direct contact with students for the whole year 2020 and 21, with just a few exceptions when it comes to medical seminars. But for most of the students, it would. One of the side effects of that is also I work in the humanities, but I'm at the medical school. And when you have to sacrifice something, of course, you sacrifice something that is seems less relevant in the long run. You would rather sacrifice a humanities class than a clinical class in that respect. Online teaching is also less space consuming, but it's much more time consuming. And this has been experience of all my colleagues from my department, that we spend much more time for preparing an online class, for assessing the results, the exams, everything, than for a regular class. However, that has been accompanied by cuts in salaries, because, well, that's an opportunity for the decision makers also to cut the salaries. Another thing that has been detrimental in my experience, students are really, not all of them of course, but they're faking presence. This has been a problem here at my university, at my school. We have now a new rule that everyone has to have his camera on throughout the meeting. So I hope it will help, but it will not solve the problem of being mentally present, something you can easily check out in a classroom. Very difficult to do what someone is doing on his screen when he's far away, especially if you have a group of 20 students. It's almost impossible, I would say. So faking presence is an issue, definitely. And not controlling this space. The programs we have don't allow us at the moment to control the shared learning space. It means also students are cheating. We had the experience of cheating during exams. It's almost impossible to control. It also seems that technological infrastructure appears as more important than physical infrastructure these days, and this can lead to new inequalities among schools. Well, this can be also an opportunity, but at the start, the schools that have more money, more wealth, they are better prepared for the start. And finally, something that has been also addressed, so I'm not going to dwell on it, is that private spatial infrastructure is really determining. You could see huge discrepancies in access in students with a modern or old laptop with shared or private space. Those who had the luxury of having their own private room and a private computer and a good internet connection were already at the start privileged to an incomparable extent. The same goes for the faculty. We are not prepared to have an office for every working person at home, and this is something we all have to address in the future. When it comes to research, of course, the major detrimental effect was the canceling of conferences, meetings, seminars, or at least postponing. But this postponing can go forever. I think this is the worst thing we can really do. It's a very old-fashioned solution, looking back. But instead, I believe we should think the new normal. We shouldn't cancel events under any circumstances. They wouldn't be the same. They might be 10 times worse, but at least they would take place. And this is very important to keep the sense of time intact, to not wholly destroy. So if I have one normative thing to say, I would say don't cancel events. Just to give you an example, we have a yearly meeting in Oxford of the Phenomenology Mental Health Network, and we decided not to cancel it. We moved it online. It's been a huge success. Suddenly, despite the changes in the environment, the event took a wholly different direction. We built a YouTube channel. We used, as now, we use the webinar system, and we had much more participants than usually, only if people could now join the meeting, not being able to travel to Oxford from the countries far away. So this has been, I would say, a success in terms of access. Now, it's almost impossible also to plan grants on the European level, because you don't know how the mobility of researchers will look like, and this is a huge problem. So I have, I guess, 2 minutes left, so I will move to opportunities for teaching. Well, my school has been quite successful in moving everything to online. So, PUMS is Poznań University of Medical Sciences. So we moved not only classes, but also faculty meetings. We had bachelor, master, and PhD boards and defenses of the thesis online with the deans and teachers working from their private space. And that was all much less time and space consuming. It was cheaper. But one thing I want to say about the e-learning is the e-learning, what we had here already before, it's sort of a old game in the new environment, and I don't think we should play the e-learning game. The e-learning, what differs e-learning from the shared online learning is that you have no shared present moment. You assign tasks to your students, they reply to these tasks, you can record your lecture, they can listen to your lecture, you all know that. And that was working well as an addition to normal teaching experience, normal shared seminar experience. When the seminar experience, the shared experience, is suddenly cut off, when it's unavailable, substituting it with e-learning is not a good way to go. That would mean losing something very crucial about especially the humanities teaching. It's maybe less in the anatomy teaching, but it would mean losing this commonality or simultaneity of interaction. I mentioned the conferences already, but certainly there are new possibilities with these new organizations of time space. I have the feeling, contrary to some commentaries that have been also quoted, that the accessibility increases also for poorer countries or for poorer researchers. With major conferences, major universities moving online, especially if they are free or with just a very small fee, they are suddenly accessible for people living far away and not having the funds, not having the grants to participate in them. Also, the content becomes more important than the space. People were coming to Oxford or to Cambridge or to those famous old European universities, partly for the experience of Oxford and Cambridge, for the experience of having a beer in a pub and seeing all these century-old buildings. As for the conference, suddenly it all changes. You don't go, if you go for an Oxford conference, it's just for being there virtually. It's just for the content. So these big players suddenly lose a part of their allure, and hopefully for the sake of smaller ones. The timing is awkward, speciality awkward, but there are also gains. I don't have time to dwell on that, but especially you gain time of travel, of course, and you cut the costs. And well, we should think optimistic about it, not to mention there is no funding on COVID-related subject. Overall, just to summarize it quickly, I really think the best way to think about it overall is to think the new normal and don't pathologize that. Don't look forward for the past that has been lost. We are not going back. There is no going back. History teaches us there is no going back. All the empires collapse, and the empire of the university as we know it, that started in 19th century Germany, basically is going to collapse as well. And all we have to do is expect the unexpected, adapt, but not to lose, in my opinion, the important aspect of interhuman communication is the simultaneity across time zones. Even if we go away with shared space, we shouldn't go away with shared present time. Thank you for your attention, and happy to stay in touch. That's my email. I'm turning off my mic now. Thank you very much.
Dr. Marcin, thank you for your nice presentation. I think it was wonderful to listen to you, how you talk about the leave time and space in higher education, how you pointed out the challenges in teaching, taking presence, and the examination issues, meeting issues, and so many different aspects. And I think our participants and we all have gained a lot from your presentation. I would like to ask you, like, do you have time to like wait for the next speaker to finish and then three of you answer the questions together? Because we're also running a little.
I'm staying here. I'm staying here till the end. I must jump off to take care of my one, but I beg I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for your session. We had two speakers till now. We had a keynote address from Professor Satyendra Poddar, and we had Professor Daniel Clasby and Dr. Marcin presenting. Now our next speaker will be introduced by Dr. Momita De, HOD Department of English, Holy Cross College. And I just request all the participants, some of you are putting your video on. What happens then the connection gets slowed down. So I request all the participants to please put your video and mic off so that we can easily go for the smooth functioning of this particular session. Over to Madam Momita.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Professor Christopher Scarborough. Professor Scarborough is Professor of History at King's College, Pennsylvania. He has a number of books to his credit, out of which he is the sole author of The Late Socialist Good Life in Bulgaria, Meaning and Living in a Permanent Present Tense. And he's also the editor of a very recent publication, which is entitled Socialist Good Life, Desire, Development, and Standards of Living in Eastern Europe. The very next year, he will be conducting a research in Bulgaria under the auspices of the Fulbright US Scholar Fellowship to work on his next monograph, which is entitled Middle Class Socialism and the Revenge of the More, under contract with Bergen Books. In the year 2010, Professor Scarborough and his family, he was a visiting instructor. We are privileged to have Professor Christopher Scarborough with us today, and is Crossing Borders and Reading Landscapes, a model for post-COVID international education. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, better than I deserve. I want to start by saying I hope that you all are well and safe during this pandemic, an event that has truly turned the world upside down. The very title of today's webinar, Post-COVID Higher Education System, reminds us that something has changed, that we can talk about before and after when we think about the Great Plague of 2020. It's an honor to be here today with such distinguished speakers from around the world to speak on such an important topic. Pankaj tells me that over 400 people have signed up to participate via Google Meet or Facebook Live, and I can safely say that I've never been before that kind of audience in my life. So I want to thank Pankaj and the organizing committee at Holy Cross College Agartala for putting this webinar together. I'm very glad to be back, albeit virtually, on the campus of Holy Cross College among friends and colleagues. My year spent in Agartala with my family was an incredible time, and I think evidence of the kind of work that we should aspire to as we look to a post-COVID world in higher education. I'll talk about why and how we might try to build on these experiences in a couple of minutes. I have to say at the start that I really appreciate the somewhat optimistic title for today's conference, with the idea of a post-COVID world and strategies and opportunities for collaboration in situ remaining. The idea being that this too shall pass and that the future will offer space for those of us in higher education to build on and make new connections in the service of global learning. This conference is perhaps a rope thrown across a great chasm, providing hope of better days to come. Webinars like this point to the importance of international education, and I'm looking forward to thinking through some ways to put projects into action with you. So as I sit here in the middle of the night, half a world away, neck deep in preparations for a fall semester that is tragically and correctly focused on sealing ourselves off from one another, plastic sheeting, virtual classrooms, and the smell of disinfectants in the air, I'm reminded of walking across the border with Pankaj into Bangladesh nearly a decade ago. We caught a rickshaw from the sweaty border post to the rail station to take a train into Dhaka for a week-long seminar at a sister institution, Notre Dame College. We were met there by our colleague, Aparna Das, who I think actually I saw is participating in today's seminar. So welcome, Aparna, and maybe you guys can ask her some questions as well. And together, we worked with high school English teachers from across Bangladesh to work on curriculum development and classroom strategies in foreign language instruction. It was a wonderfully fruitful experience for me, and I hope for the participants as well. I think it was. The workshop, partially funded by the Caritas Foundation, brought 60 teachers from across Bangladesh for a one-week intensive workshop on teaching English as a second language. These teachers came from all over Bangladesh with a wide range of experiences, expectations, and backgrounds. Some of the participants were recognized as leaders in their field. Some of them, quite frankly, didn't speak much English at all. Despite, or perhaps because of these difficulties, the workshop was a fantastic experience. Our sessions were held over 6 days, from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening. The participants never seemed to want the day's work to end, and each evening we had to plead exhaustion, to pause, and only then briefly, the conversations. We were colleagues from across disciplines, nationalities, and experience, thinking through difficult pedagogical questions, ranging from the high concept, how to think of English as a global language and one indigenous to the Indian subcontinent, to the practical, how to teach in a classroom without textbooks. Perhaps the most important result, however, rested in the emerging cooperation between three institutions: Holy Cross College in Agartala, King's College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and Notre Dame College in Dhaka. I left Dhaka amazed with what we accomplished and deeply excited about the prospects for future collaboration. Now, I arrived at Agartala in 2011 through a joint collaboration between King's College in Wilkes-Barre and Holy Cross College. My family lived on the campus, now the old campus, of the college in Agartala. My daughter went to kindergarten at Holy Cross. She failed her first semester class in English. As you know, Holy Cross is a serious school. As a result of this collaboration, and I emphasize the word collaboration, remarkable things were accomplished. We organized 2 workshops at the college on questions of pedagogy, the first on course design, the second on classroom management. In 2013, Holy Cross College hosted its first international seminar on the topic globalization, its issues and challenges with special reference to India, resulting in a book, Contours of Globalization, edited by scholars from 3 institutions with contributions from scholars around India and the world. We developed a study abroad program for King's College, taking King's students to the Indian subcontinent for the first time, and a subsequent program led by my colleagues Noreen O'Connor and Aisha Ray ran in 2015. It was particularly exciting to watch the students from King's College interact with students from Holy Cross. They were paired together for their time in Agartala. The students learned tremendously from one another and demonstrated the power inherent in faculty and students when they get together from the 2 institutions. This close collaboration continued upon my return to the United States. In 2015, Pankaj Chakrabarty was awarded a Fulbright Scholar in Residence grant, bringing him to Pennsylvania to spend his year working at King's College. I'll let him tell you about his work there some other time. Now, I bring these accomplishments up, and I apologize for the rather lengthy summation, not to brag, though I am proud of what we accomplished in Agartala nearly a decade ago, but rather to remind us what is at stake, what we stand to gain and lose in the face of this current crisis and the resulting turn inward. As I see it, we are presented with a set of 3 interrelated challenges with respect to post-COVID international education. Broadly speaking, very broadly, these challenges are pedagogical, financial, and challenges of purpose and mission. This conference is, I think, designed to talk about turning those challenges into opportunities, which is what I'll try to do at the end. So if you allow me, I'll briefly sketch out some of the ways in which COVID has transformed the way we think about international education. The first of these issues is, of course, the question of safety for students, staff, and faculty. The idea of walking across an international border on a rickshaw to meet with faculty for a conference on anything seems like a fairy tale in a world where many people are in lockdown. In the face of the pandemic, schools in an incredibly short amount of time have had to redesign their working model. At King's, this meant moving all instruction online in the middle of March. Students and faculty had to learn new technologies in order to recreate as much as possible the classroom experience virtually. Next semester, as Dan mentioned, we'll be moving forward with a hybrid model, generally half of our students in a class at a time, in order to limit the risk of exposure to the virus. The college is buying new classroom instructional technologies, retrofitting buildings to increase classroom space, and creating new class schedules and cleaning regimes to make campus as safe as possible. It is anyone's guess whether this will work or not. In the business world, experts call this type of disruption creative destruction and focus on the innovation that occurs in the face of crisis, right? The idea of adaptation. In the United States, there's been a deluge of advice on how to remake the classroom. Some of it has potential, if done right, to point a way forward, adopting the tutorial system in the college classroom, for example, which would both limit exposure to the virus and double down on the foundation of liberal education, close collaboration between faculty and student, and inquiry-based education. Most of the literature, at least most of the literature that I've read, however, focus on the nature of the work that colleges have done to adapt to the changes thrust upon us. And it is important to keep in mind that these things have, were thrust upon us. There hasn't been a whole lot of time to make sure that they were working well before we had to use them. Surveys indicate student displeasure with online learning. 75%, according to a survey conducted by one class, were disappointed by their experiences last semester. Students are increasingly asking why they should pay tens of thousands of dollars for an inferior education. And we shouldn't kid ourselves. Online education is inferior. Students are rightly unconvinced that traditional higher education is worth it and are looking for cheaper options. Surveys from Inside Higher Ed point to both the high toll and deep unhappiness with the transition to online education in the middle of the semester. As might be expected, 63% of faculty surveyed changed the assignments or exams required of students. Close to half lowered their expectations for students. 47%, including King's College, allowed most students to choose the pass-fail option for the end of semester grades. As the Chronicle of Higher Education notes, the coronavirus has changed faculty life, perhaps forever. Their prediction is grim: heavier teaching loads, more service requirements, and more time online. This is neither sustainable nor desirable, except perhaps for those who hope to make education purely a capitalist endeavor. And more on this later. Colleges are in the midst not only of a pedagogical crisis, how to teach effectively in this brave new world, but are also in the midst of a real financial crisis. This is, of course, the second challenge, and it is existential. Robin Kelchin, again in the Chronicle, predicts that July will be one of the worst months in the history of higher education in the United States, with layoffs, declarations of financial exigency, and closures imminent. I am certain that many, if not all, of these questions are at play in India as well. How do we fund higher education? This was a problem before the pandemic, which of course has made them much, much worse. Many of the financial pillars of colleges and universities in the United States have evaporated overnight. Rent from student dormitories, revenue from food service and intercollegiate athletics, parking, and most crucially, a decline in student enrollment as they either find college unaffordable or search for cheaper options. In the short term, these problems aren't going to be fixed. If the students don't come back, it won't matter. A third challenge predates COVID and ultimately is a more difficult challenge to overcome: the professionalization of higher education. I tend to think of this as a crisis of mission or purpose. What and who is college for? In many ways, this is a promising development, connected, at least in the United States, to the democratization of higher education. In the post-war era, I'm talking about post-World War II, College increasingly became understood as a ladder to the middle class. This started with the passage of the GI Bill, passed in 1944, which, among other things, granted returning white veterans stipends to go to college. Within a decade, more than 7 million soldiers had used the GI Bill to attend college or a vocational training program. This remade the face of American higher education, mostly in salutary ways. Colleges expanded to take in new students. King's College, for example, was founded in 1946 to educate those for whom college was now affordable. A generation later, these students were now teachers and professors, which led to a globalization of the curriculum and shifting, slowly but surely, the focus of education away from the study of the classics and dead white men. It was no longer a finishing school. This again had many wonderful effects. Toni Morrison and Salman Rushdie were now in dialogue with Plato and Shakespeare. Western civilization was increasingly and thankfully displaced in the United States by global history. This again was all to the good. And economically in the United States, the transformations were deeply beneficial. Many historians point to the GI Bill and its creation of a well-educated and skilled workforce as a central pillar in the post-war economic boom. But it also has meant that college has increasingly become a means to an end, a ticket to a better life, of skills required for upward mobility. It has meant the creation of professional programs and majors that lead seamlessly to a job after graduation. According to the U.S. Department of Education, 1 in 5 college students in the United States are majoring in business. King's College is dominated by such programs, the Physician's Assistants Program, which accounts for about 20% of our students, and new programs in nursing, engineering, and exercise science. While the adoption of these programs is on the whole a good thing, and the students that they bring into King's has allowed the college to weather some difficult economic times, including, I hope, this one, they have also changed the way we relate to the project of higher education. College is supposed to be worth something in a quantifiable sense. In the American context, this means that graduation should lead to a good salary. Education should be, in a real sense, profitable. It is the American way, I suppose. So the idea being that what you pay in tuition, you more than make up for in your future earnings. Everything that does not contribute to this does not service this goal was and is deemed extraneous. College is something other than a means to an end is a questionable proposition. The liberal arts are on the defensive. History and literature and philosophy have to demonstrate their usefulness in this new climate. At its worst, what this has meant is the creation of a host of for-profit colleges which promise students a cut-rate degree focusing on professional programs that promise, but all too often fail to deliver, good-paying jobs after the checks clear. This is the most insidious of the challenges facing our colleges today, the idea of college as a utilitarian endeavor. And it's not going away with COVID. So how do we demonstrate that college can be, should be, something more? I propose doubling down on the liberal arts, which we have to demonstrate again, and I think in new ways, to be the most powerful tool we have to interpret and engage the world around us. This is, of course, what Max Weber said made us humans. We were animals who made meaning, who assign value. It is in the liberal arts, and I would argue in the humanities specifically, that we learn how to do this. Training in the Physician's Assistants Program or in the business school won't do that, which is why at King's we require our students to take their important classes in the core curriculum. The liberal arts have to be interdisciplinary, linking literature and economics. They also have to be global in focus. In short, we have to design programs that meet these goals and demonstrate worth and value in ways both esoteric and quantifiable. We have to design programs that demonstrably transform our students, getting them to ask big questions about identity, purpose, and meaning in powerful and affecting ways. These programs also have to develop what we at King's call the transferable skills of liberal learning, which are, when push comes to shove, essential to getting a good job, reading carefully and critically, practicing discernment, writing well-researched and argued pieces. I'd like to offer as a model the Reading Landscapes and Crossing Borders program, which we have designed at King's College. Dan and I have both been sort of in on the ground floor in developing these programs. So I'd like to invite you to direct all questions about them to him at the end of this paper. Now, central to these programs' design is the idea that we take students from the Wyoming Valley in northeastern Pennsylvania and take them across some of the mental borders that we all use to frame our understanding of the world. The line between the West and non-West, between the Christian or Islamic world, across national boundaries or economic and social boundaries. We do this to demonstrate that these boundaries are both fictive and real, that they have a history, costs, benefits, and that they can be remade. Our first program took students from Bulgaria to Turkey, then it was called Geographies of Europe. Since then, we've run 5 additional programs, from Paris to the suburbs of Paris, from Spain to Morocco, and Dan was a leader there, across the former Yugoslavia, and another one of Dan's programs, we're tracing the Grand Tour in Italy. My colleague says that she can see students' brains oozing out of their heads while we walk in Taksim Square in Istanbul, a highlight of my own teaching career. The transformations are real and obvious, and they can't be replicated online or in a college that doesn't place central importance on a global St. Mary's College, also in Indiana. Time passed and things got in the way, but I wonder if now is a time to revisit this idea. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions. So thanks.
Hi, Chris. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it was wonderful to see you presenting on the topic. I'm sorry, there are a few things. I'll just correct it and come in. Okay. So there are a few things that we'll be communicating with all the presenters, obviously. Here we had Professor Christopher Scarborough with us, and he presented on the topic Crossing Borders and Reading Landscape, a model for post-COVID international education. And I think it was a wonderful presentation from Professor Christopher's part. We really enjoyed the presentation, and we all look forward to the questions that participants would like to ask Professor Christopher Scarborough, Daniel Clasby, and Mersin. And before we go to the question, I would just want to say that it was a wonderful experience that I had working with Professor Christopher Scarborough, for which he gave the reference. Actually, his paper was based on the reference that the work we did together and the course that he and I together work on to create and Crossing the Border. Chris, I think it was a very informative session, very insightful, and I enjoyed thoroughly, and I'm sure everybody have gained a lot of knowledge from this particular presentation. Thank you very much. Now, I want to tell everyone that we will be having interactive session at the end of this webinar for sure, when all the speakers are done. But we know that our speakers from abroad, like Chris and Professor Daniel Clasby, it's very late night over there now. I think it's 1:32, Chris, over there now?
It's 2:05.
2 a.m., 2 at night. So I hope that all of us understand that we can't make them wait till the end of the webinar to interact with them. It will be really an injustice to them. And also we have Dr. Mersin. It's very early morning for him, and he has a lot of responsibilities too to take care. So that's why I would like to request all the participants to ask questions to our speakers who already have presented. Just exit full screen. Okay. So now the questions session is open for Professor Daniel Clasby, Dr. Mersin, and Professor Christopher Scarborough. And if anyone is having any queries, questions, doubts, comments, or sharing, and if you want to ask anything to any of the professors, please write in the chat box. I'll surely communicate it to them. I already have a question that I have received from, this is from Marilyn Durlong. She's from IQAC University, and I think Chris Marilyn, yes, Chris Marilyn was our student, and now she's teaching in a university, IQAC University. So you can, she's having a question to Dan, I think. What are the evaluation system the US adopting for the students in this time of pandemic? Do the students have to go through any exam? This is the question to Dan, Daniel Clasby. If Professor Daniel is listening, could you please come in and add this question?
Yes, thank you, Pankaj. Just to clarify, examination for entry or matriculation to the university, or examinations as part of a class or a course?
Marilyn, do you have anything to say related to that?
Yes, sir, I have turned on my mic.
Please.
I was basically meaning maybe for the final year students, the final semester students, or maybe the other existing students. So do they have to go through an exam? In India, we have to, the students are asked to face the exam. So that is the rule been given recently. And also, like, our university has already started. So I'm interested to know whether in US, does the same evaluation pattern happens or not?
So the pattern is not as formal. Traditionally in the United States, it is not as formal anymore to have a final examination or even sitting for a midterm examination. That said, traditionally faculty members do have their students sit for some kind of examination, and the experience has been sort of turned on its head because of the virus and because of our ability to be together. So to give you a sense of what King's plans to do, if our schedule works as we have it, which is that we'll start in early August and we'll go until the middle of November. Any examinations that were to take place on campus would happen in the context of a socially distanced space where students are wearing masks and the like. I think probably faculty have not thought through maybe how difficult some of that will be, but the idea is that we would try to carry on as normal. We are encouraging faculty during the academic year to emphasize meeting remotely, meeting by appointment. And so I do think it's a possibility that many faculty will in fact give their exams virtually through some kind of digital access point, so that we can lessen the number of times that people have to meet. Now, I will say the final examination for all of the classes will happen after the college shuts down again in November. And so that the end of the year exams, which again are not as formal perhaps as they are in India, but many people still use them as a way to give a final assessment. Those will necessarily have to be done digitally, and the college is, I think, still thinking about that process. We have a number of tools that we already use for students to have access through their course webpage to complete assignments, have access to these assignments in a digital space, and to look at academic integrity issues. So to make sure that students are not cheating or in any way, benefiting from not being in session with a professor taking an exam. And we're still sort of trying to figure that out. Actually, I'd be interested to know what Professor Scarborough has planned. He's usually well ahead of me in scheduling everything and getting everything done on time. But I think it's still a work in progress. There are some technologies out there that can look for cheating, look for students copying, look for students using the internet or other sources that they're not supposed to use when taking an exam. But it is certainly a new world, and we're still, I think, trying to adjust to it. I hope that answers your question a little bit. At least, try to give you a sense of what we're thinking as we tackle that challenge.
Thank you so much, sir. I got the point.
Sorry for rushing because we are running a little late. So I'll go to the next question. Thank you, Marilyn, for asking. Next question is from Shreya Paul. She is asking, the internet is the new luxury of the world. And as all luxuries only reach the handfuls of the comfortable, does this mean that the far-reaching goals of education would cease, thus creating a new brand of haves and have-nots? She didn't mention whom she is asking this question. That we have two more eminent speakers with us. After this interaction, they will be delivering their speeches. Yeah. So she's asking whether it's creating a new brand of haves and have-nots. Chris, Daniel, or Dr. Mersin, anyone can. And because she didn't mention, I request the participant to mention whom you are asking the questions, please.
Well, I think the short answer is yes. I think both of the other presenters had some ideas about maybe how to combat that, so I'll turn it over to them, but I think absolutely it's a problem.
Okay. Anyone is addressing this question?
Yeah. I'll just echo what Dr. Scarborough said. It is a problem, this digital divide, access, opportunity in terms of students' ability to complete work online, find a space where they can do that work in some peace and quiet without the pressures of life, of a job, of caring for family members, especially in this era of COVID, who may be ill. We don't have anything like, in the United States, nothing like universal broadband. So any access to the internet and to the digital world that you want in the United States is going to have to come from your wallet, from your pocketbook.
Okay. For the shortage of time, we'll take only two more questions for these three speakers, and later on, participants can pass on the question to us. We can also send the questions to our speakers, and we can interact with them. The next question is from Ms. Tapashi Shah, madam. Professor, it is to Dr. Mersin, I think. How can you incorporate e-learning with online teaching? Dr. Mersin, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks. Thanks for the question. I have a rather harsh opinion on the e-learning. As I said, e-learning is fine when the majority of interaction takes place within the normal environment. When it does not, I find it quite detrimental to the authenticity of contact. Well, just to give you an example, in the humanities, it's very difficult to devise e-learning. But even in more natural scientific disciplines, give you an example. I teach, for example, methodology of the sciences, and some of the rules in there don't change. You teach inference logic, you teach deduction methods. These methods hasn't changed for hundreds of years. But if you record the lecture, your exam, for example, the examples you use would have to be fairly general. And you have students from different environments, from different classes. If you use the same examples for for the surgery students and for public health students and for history students, it wouldn't work. Sometimes something has happened the day before in the news. You pick up that example and you explain an inference logical model on that example, and it speaks to students. If you just record it online and they just watch it, you would really have to change this lecture and adjust them to every different audience, to every and really update them every year to keep up with the ongoing history and the context. So I think there is a possibility to include e-learning when it comes to purely factographical knowledge. For example, in anatomy classes, for example, and physiology classes. But even then, it has to be combined with, it has to be no more than, I don't know, well, a half or 1/3 of the teaching load, because you would have to, you have to be able to address what is being the e-learning. Here, e-learning means basically a pre-recorded lectures with questions that you fill up, forms online, to know that you followed the lecture, the matter that's being discussed. But I'm fairly skeptical about e-learning taking the place of normal in terms of interactive, being present, being able to ask questions, seeing each other, and so on, teaching.
Okay, we will quickly take 2 more questions since we are running short of time. The next question is from Meenakshi Paul. This is the question to Dr. Daniel Clasby. So don't you think e-learning is likely to witness a high dropout rate due to lack of atmosphere of studying? To Dan.
Yes. Yes, I think so. I mean, I want to be, maybe I've been more nuanced in my answer, but when we in spring 2020 made the switch from on-campus learning to online or remote learning, we surveyed the students. Dr. Scarborough talked a little bit about their responses, and in general, we found that the students adapted as well as could be expected. And in fact, if you look at our retention numbers from the spring, I believe we only had a very small handful relative to the population of the school of students who dropped out from the semester. But what we also learned from the survey was that the students didn't like online learning, or at least they didn't like the emergency approach to online learning. And admittedly, many of us were, flying by the seats of our pants, as it were, trying to learn how to teach a course with this new technology and in the middle of a pandemic. And we certainly could have done better. But I think students were still, especially in the United States, looking for the experience, which in many of the surveys that have been taken elsewhere, national surveys would suggest that the kind of experience that students want is one in which they are in the classroom, which they have access to the professor and to other students, that learning is an active, or to quote Dr. Maris, a present activity. And I think, what we are seeing as we gear up for fall is that there are students who are making a decision now to not return to places that are going to fully online teaching, because they don't think they can do well in that modality for all sorts of reasons, I suppose. I mean, one knows oneself, right, after a while, and so whether you can. Online learning takes a certain level of sort of self-direction that I think sometimes if you're an 18-year-old student, you may not have the best of that, and so you might know yourself and say, well, I'm not going to return to college until I can be in the classroom and I can settle into a traditional format. So to go back to the question and a more simple answer, yes, I think it will. I think e-learning, online learning, remote learning, there's lots of different terms for it, will lead to higher rates of student attrition.
This question is from Dr. Reva Chakravarti to Chris. She's asking, how do you conduct the science practical in US and King's College? I know you, Dr. Scarborough is from history department, but Madam is asking about the science practicals. How do you conduct? So,
actually, I don't know. Maybe you want to field that one, Dan. You may have a better idea than I do. I guess I can talk a little bit about the curriculum at King's is such that every student has to take. Sorry.
Yeah.
Every student has to take a certain number of classes in liberal arts and then their major, and each major has a different set of requirements as far as the number of credit hours they have to take in their major. Some science majors, now for instance, I know at least chemistry does, has outside accrediting agencies that they have to meet certain requirements. But each of the science majors has their own curriculum, has their own standards that they apply to measure student progress through the major. And I, as a historian, don't know a whole lot about that. I don't know. Did you have anything to add to that, Dan? Or?
Maybe I can add something. I know a little bit about what the sciences are doing. One of the chat participants, in response to my earlier answer, said, well, and also e-learning is tough for people who have little in terms of income. Access and opportunity is often something that comes along with one's wealth. And I think this is the same can be true, said to be true about, just to push that as a metaphor almost, about colleges and universities in the United States. I mean, everyone is familiar with the really big institutions, but in fact, of the some 4,000 or so colleges and universities in the United States, 80% plus are small and dependent on tuition revenue and room and board revenue. And so I say that one of the things that King's has struggled with is trying to find the budget, the money, to make lab practicals in the natural sciences work. And there's not one answer for that. We put together a committee of lab science people who knew lots about the physical space, knew lots about the needs. We had people on that committee who were also epidemiologists, so they practice in disease and disease spread. And what it has meant is that they've had to spend some money on fixing some of the air duct, what we call HVAC or ventilation systems in these lab spaces. Most classes, because labs are rather large traditionally, we have lots of students who are interested in majoring in the sciences, will have to split those labs up because we have basically a rule of thumb that most classroom spaces at King's College can only handle about a third capacity when you introduce social distancing into the mix. And what that means for our labs is that most labs then cannot have more than 8 or 10 students in them at any one time. It's going to be tough. They will have to wear masks, and So that will, as they're sitting there working over chemicals or whatever, that will be an added something that is uncomfortable. And, it's how to finish. There's no one answer. It's not a great situation. They're trying to prioritize health and safety first. And I hope we can beat this virus and return to some normalcy soon, because this will be a very tough struggle if these kinds of adaptations have to be carried on for another year or 2 years or 3 years.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful presentation. I want to thank Professor Daniel Crosby, Professor Marston, and Professor Christopher for your nice and enriching presentation. And I'm sure participants have many more questions and many more queries. But due to shortage of time, we will not be able to take them now. But we request you to send us the questions and we'll forward them to the resource persons. And with this, we will move to the next presentation. Vote of thanks obviously proposed by Father Shaji at the end of this webinar. The next presenter will be introduced by Dr. Sushobhan Sengupta, BBA HOD and coordinator IQAC Holy Cross College.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to introduce Professor Chandrika Basu Majumdar, Professor of Political Science and presently acting as the Dean of Faculty of Arts and Commerce, Tripura University. Professor Majumdar is currently working as a professor in the Department of Political Science, Tripura Central University. She is also the Director of Women's Studies, Tripura University. She is also a member of Advisory Committee, Tripura High Court, Legal Services. She has in her credit 3 published books, 4 edited books, number of articles published in reputed national and international journals. Under her guidance, she has completed 7 PhD scholars awarded with PhD degree. 6 scholars are now registered under her. She is former member of Internal Quality Cell, Tripura University. Her areas of interest are gender studies, local self-government, human rights, etc. Now, may I call upon Professor Chandrika Basu Majumdar to present her topic, Post-COVID-19 Situation, Impact of Gender Studies in Higher Education. Over to you, madam.
Am I audible?
Yes, madam, you are audible.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, madam,
Hello?
we can hear you. We can hear you, madam.
Okay. Good afternoon, Pankaj and all the members of organizing team for organizing such an excellent academic discussion. And under this auspicious college, Holy Cross College of Agartala, which has already been ranked A grade under NAC supervision. Thank you, and I congratulate you that you have given us a chance to interact with eminent personalities from international area, so that we can share our experiences from India also. My topics today, which I want to highlight some issues that already we have enough knowledge in theory and in practice also regarding this highlight on this issue also, that is sustainable development goal. India has already adopted this goal, sustainable development goal of 17 by 2030. And here the goal number 5 is gender assurance of gender equality. And if we have to achieve this, gender study center should be promoted. And another important observation in this post-COVID situation, I like to draw your attention about the observation of Secretary General of United Nations. Recently, he remarked that he remarked that in this post-COVID situation, whenever we have to take any policy, and we have to make it women-centric, and we have to make it girl-child centric. Why? That I will even this opinion has been shared and supported by World Health Organization and by World Bank also. And there are few vital points which I like to mention here, that this because of this we have to take more attention, give more attention for promotion of gender studies center. See, if we look at the historical facts, if we look at the pandemic situation of the world before, for example, Ebola in 2014, Zika virus, SARS, swine flu, bird flu. If we study the effect and consequences of all this epidemic, we see after this one of the great consequence of this was gender gap in income. Gender gap in income, already in the keynote address, Professor Poddar has mentioned that we are witnessing the joblessness, we are witnessing the
I think Madam has got a call in the mobile phone, most probably. Madam, can you listen to me? Your mic is off. Can you hear me, Madam?
Now
we can hear you, Madam.
Okay, thank you. So in this pandemic situation, what happened, this income gap, and that was much big one. And I like to mention here very recently in the month of April, Research Institute of Women's Policy Research Center, they have observed and they have brought out the report that in the month of April itself, unemployment of women that were 3 times greater than the male section. And actually, I am mentioning all this thing because I am mentioning all this thing just to point out how a gender study center can do research and can take a recommendation, can give recommendation how to improve the situation. Because gender studies center, they are thinking not only 10% people, they are not thinking 20% people, they are thinking of 50%, more than 50%. And when it will be the gender study center, it will include not only women but male, those male section of the society who are victim of patriarchy, and they will also include LGBT, they will also include migrant population, and every section, gender specific role, they will include. So here I like to mention another point, that post-COVID situation, the bad consequences which we are witnessing, increasing rate of maternal mortality rate and increasing rate of child marriage and pregnancy of unmarried girl, that is also on high rise. And already the people of the country came to know from the report of National Women's Commission that our domestic violence is on rise. And the first 1 month report is very much alarming, that the victims of domestic violence, they are not getting proper care because of the absence of surveillance. And also recently UNESCO also forecast that due to lack of due to lockdown and stopping educational institution, about 11 crore girls will be compelled to stop their education in the developing countries. This is the focus of UNESCO. And Research Institute of Women's Policy Research, they are actually of the opinion that because of this pandemic situation, women are getting their losing their jobs. For example, we all know women are highly involved in this. For example, catering system, for hotel business, for traveling area, and all these areas due to pandemic they are being stopped, and women are the women are the great loser of this. And we all know this study center, women study center, gender study center, uh, basically these centers are involved in three parts of their action. One is teaching, one is training, and one is research. In training, they are actually training this marginalized section for their earninghood, livelihood. How can they earn? And in that part, if we look at the work participation rate of women in labor, and we will be very much far behind the SDG goals, goal number 5, that is gender equality. Here we see what is alarming. I like to mention that is it is decreasing. Earlier census it was 25% work participation rate. Now it is 22, and also in this 22%, 94% of women are working in unorganized sector. And we all know this. There are some women-centric schemes government has already taken into account. For example, Janadhan Yojana, for example, giving a full debt facility to the women member of self-help group. And for example, about 8 crores rural women, they have been getting the facility of Ujjwala Yojana gas facilities. These women-centric schemes, which are benefiting the women, that should be increased in a great way. And actually, research center like Gender Studies Center, they can arrange for research on these aspects, and gender segregated data they can provide. Otherwise, for example, our honorable Professor Poddar has mentioned about this unemployment of huge unemployment of the people in our country. But what is the gender ratio? If we look at the gender segregated data, we will see that women are the most deprived one, because you see when after every epidemic, it has been seen that women has lost their job in many ways. And what I like to mention that this for example, every marginalized group, the issue of marginalization, the issue of child marriage, all these issues are being taught in of child marriage, and reasons are almost same in all the periphery and regions. That is one reason is this lockdown of educational institution, then joblessness, then absence of surveillance on the part of stakeholders, and then when parents are having this scope of organizing this child marriage with little money or no money at all. They are taking this chance. They are not looking at the overall consequence of child marriage to their children, how they are disempowering their girl for life. They are not taking into account. This post-COVID situation, all these issues should be sensitively dealt with if we have to reach the sustainable development goals. And I actually like to emphasize this point that if we make 50% population, 70% population behind, the overall growth of country will be at stake. And that is the economic scenario of our country, that we have to keep in mind that if we empower a male, we empower him individually. But if we empower a woman, we empower the whole family. If we empower the whole family, the society will be empowered, the country will be empowered, the world will be empowered. And because this is our experience and this is our observation, that if a woman earns, then her earning is spent for nutrition purpose, for education purpose, for health purpose of the family. And so I think as these centers try to record the contribution of women, the contribution of female members in a society, and who are victims of patriarchy, and irrespective of caste, class, and irrespective of society, countries. And when these centers were designed, all these centers, the idea behind it was that we have to look at the overall development of the deprived section of the people, including women, including men. And when we call it a gender study center, we don't exclude men, and we very much include men, we very much include LGBT and others who also need necessary steps for their overall improvement, which will hasten the process of development and fulfill our sustainable development goals. So again, I am thankful to the organizing college that in this pandemic situation, they are organizing international webinars so that we can also be enriched with the experiences shared by the honorable resource persons from foreign counterpart. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, for the nice presentation where you have pointed out how the importance, pointed on the importance of gender studies in higher education and various aspects of it. It was really wonderful and enriching session. And now I request Dr. Sushobhan Sengupta to introduce our next speaker. And after our next speaker speech, we will be having the questions for both the speakers together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now let me introduce Professor Seema Dhawan. Professor Dhawan is a professor of Department of Education, Birla Campus, HNV Garhwal Central University, Srinagar, Uttarakhand. More than 25 years of research and experience in graduation and post-graduate institutions. She supervised more than 5 students for dissertation and PhD work, published 3 books and 21 chapters in different books, published around 127 papers in different national and international journals, built 13 psychology tools for research work, and 7 programmed instructional materials. She has organized 41 workshops, seminars, and conferences, delivered more than 120 lectures as a resource person or a plenary in different plenary sessions and shared views in national and international forums. Has received 8 awards in the field of education, which includes Professor Satyapal, who Best Educational Sociologist Award in 2014, Woman Educationalist Award 2018, Gyan Jyoti Award 2017. Now, let me call upon Madam Simadhan to present her topic entitled Collaborative Approaches in Online Education. Madam, over to you.
Thank you, Shushoban, for a nice introduction. Respected Professor Satyadev Poddar, Dr. Beni, Dr. Saji, Dr. Pankaj, and co-speakers. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Holy Cross College, Agartala, for organizing this international webinar. Please confirm me that my voice is clear.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly, madam.
Okay, I'm presenting my...
You're audible. Okay, you can tell me.
Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible.
So I welcome you all in this afternoon session, and I support Goal 17 partnership for the goals, for sustainable development goals. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all those experts whose ideas, whose views, or any personal experiences are being used in my presentation, any kind of image, etc. We will discuss on the collaborative approach in online education, and I will highlight on these 5 aspects: collaborative approach and collaboration, the purpose and skills, what are the norms and collaborative behaviors, and the collaboration at different levels and collaborative learning. First part is the collaborative approach and collaboration. So what is an approach? The act of approaching, the way of dealing something or getting nearer to something or someone. So using the way to come closer to anything, to something, is an approach. Now, what is collaboration? Collaboration is, we can say, there is a collaboration where 2 or more people, they come together, they share their views, collectively they form some vision, they form bounded goals, and they try to achieve collaboratively, cooperating each other. That is collaboration. So with this definition, we come to the conclusion that they have some bounded goals. Now, it is a working practice where companies or the people, they come together for the common purpose, for the common vision, for the benefits of all. This is a kind of partnership where the people come together, and it is the collaboration is the action of working through something new to for the production of for the benefit of the society, for the benefit of the company. So they have some common vision. So it is one of the components of the collaboration is that all the members who are collaborating, they have a common vision, they have a common goal on which they work together. So some features of collaborations are that ideas are being exchanged. It means individual person they have some different kind of talents or skills or knowledge or any kind of experience or any kind of idea. They exchange their ideas, they collaborate, and they share their views. The next element is the communication, which is very important for collaboration, and we will discuss further what kind of communication is required for collaboration. So communication is the base of collaboration, and yes, the connectivity, there must be some connection between the different agencies or the people who are collaborating. They must have some kind of connection to share with or connection to work. These are some collaboration tools, you can say. These are the components which include the equality, the commitment, and of course the communication, responsibility, trust, love for the job, willingness to do something with the help of the others, coordination. So all these are the components of the collaboration. Now, collaboration is to collaborate. That is finding some solution or the answer of some problems jointly. So the idea is shared, and the people work together, and they try to find out some concrete solution of any problem or any product. They produce something. There is a little bit difference between the cooperation and collaboration. In cooperation, the people come together. They have their vision separate. They combine, and of course they come together and they jointly work. But they don't merge their vision into one. But in the collaboration, the vision, the idea of all the participating persons, they merge together and they form a one single goal or one single vision towards which they work together. So this is the difference between cooperation and collaboration. Also, this cooperation is very informal in nature, whereas the collaboration is very structured in nature. It is very formal in nature. And in opportunity driven is the this cooperation. This is very opportunity driven, whereas this collaboration is goal oriented. It is towards the goal or towards the combined vision or towards the combined goal. Communication is very essential. It is the base of any collaboration. When we join the communication, when we add communication with cooperation, then success will be there and the true sense of collaboration will result. So these are the three, we say the 4C of collaboration, or you can say the connectivity, that is the critical thinking and the communication, collaboration, and the creativity is in the center, the innovation is in the center. It means through collaboration, through critical thinking and communication, something new is come out, something new thing come out, and some new thing is produced. So for new thing, for new production, this 4 C's must be emphasized, and the trust is the soul of any collaboration. If we want to do something new, we want some result should be there, then we must have trust in our relationship between the people. So this slide presents the comparison of communication, cooperation, and collaboration. There is very little difference between the communication, cooperation, and collaboration as we generally think. But if we talk about the learning, only the information transmission is the communication. When we communicate, we just try to transmit the information, whereas in the collaboration, we try to transmit the knowledge, information, knowledge, and in collaboration, we collectively generate the knowledge. Similarly, in this inquiry, communication is individual inquiry based, Whereas cooperation is, yes, we combine together, there is a delegation of tasks, and in collaboration, there is a common inquiry. All the people who are collaborating, they jointly inquire, and in the decision making, in communication, it is agreement, and it may be a disagreement, but in collaboration, they all come, the social negotiation is there, and they all come to one consensus. And the goal, if we talk about the goals or the agendas, in the communication, there are multiple goals, multiple agenda. In cooperation, one goal, multiple agenda, but in collaboration, there is only one goal and only one agenda. So in this communication, in the cooperation, and in the collaboration. In collaboration, complete interdependence is there. So in collaboration, people come together for a common goal, for only one goal. They collaborate each other, and they generate something new, some new knowledge or product. Now, there are two types of collaboration. One is the synchronous collaboration, and another one is the asynchronous collaboration. When this time at this webinar, we are directly meeting each other. We are online. We are meeting each other. Instant messaging is going on. We are communicating directly. So this is the synchronous mode of collaboration. Whereas when there is a distance, when we share the annotations only and the comments, that is the asynchronous collaboration. Now coming to the purpose and skills of the collaboration. What is the purpose of collaboration? Why to collaborate? So when we want to share the responsibility, when we want to save the time, and we want to share the skills and the expertise, or we want to increase the efficiency, and also to solve the different kinds of problems, and we want to generate a social network, then we go for the collaboration. Coming to the next is, what is the main skill? The core skill of the collaboration is to help the other, to guide the other, to do something new. So main purpose, main skill is to guide. These are few skills which are very much incorporated in the collaboration. These are the trust, inspiration, exchange, and support, and of course teamwork. All these are the skills associated with collaboration. And the other important skills are listen and hear. The people who are collaborating, they must listen. They must try to understand what other people are saying. They must pause and consider the voice of the others. So, and they also choose the wise words. They should use that. They should try to use the words which appreciate the others, which accepts the views of the others also. So selecting the word is very important in the process of collaboration, and they should pay attention to the self and to the others also. And the others skills are that willingness to work together. If the people are not willing to come together, to work together, then collaboration is not there. So willingness is very important. The readiness to collaborate in every manner, in through education or the product or any kind of procedure. So they should be ready to share their views, their ideas, their resources, and they should understand their own strength and the weaknesses, and they should communicate effectively and trust one another, and committed to work together for the new vision. So there are also, these are some kind of skills which are, some skills are required before the collaboration. When the company or the institution, they want to collaborate, there are some skills which should be taken care of before the collaboration, and there are some skills which should be taken care during the process of collaboration, when that process is going on. Teamwork, the skill associated with the teamwork, all are very much required for collaboration. Conflict management, of course, conflict happens in the team. So one should know how to manage the conflict, how to listen, how to communicate, how to maintain the trust, and oppose the respect of others. So for effective collaboration, all these kinds of skills are required. So come to the norms. So this pausing, before saying any word. So giving a pause, a stop is very much needed for, and it is a rule of the collaboration. So pause should be there. Then one should clarify the ideas, what they have and what they want to do. So I should paraphrase and also ask the questions to the others to explore, to discuss, and to specify the things. They should continuously ask the questions to the others, so that they should pose the questions, and they put the ideas on the table, what they are thinking, what they want to do. So they should share their ideas and also provide the data, both kind of data, either quantitative or qualitative data is there. So they should provide the data, what they have related to that particular thing, and they should pay attention to the self and others also. They should consider the team and be kind. Kindness is very important when we try to collaborate, but because we have to collaborate with the person, with the human being. So being a kind is, of course, is very important characteristics of being human. So, and they should also presume the positive goals, what they are going to achieve. There should not be competition in the team for collaboration. So the persons who are going for collaboration, they must understand the behavior associated with a collaboration, and the competitive behavior should be avoided at the platform. There are two kinds of mindset. One is the fixed mindset and the other is the growth mindset. The growth mindset, they accept the challenges, they try to do something new, they continuously effort, they accept the criticism, and they celebrate the success of the others. So this growth type of mindset is required for the collaboration. And of course, talking about the leadership, what they should do, these are some skills which are required for the collaborative leadership. But because one must have to lead for collaboration, there should be some leadership quality. They should initiate this collaboration. So the leader should go beyond the limits of the hierarchy. They should accelerate the strategies. They should know about the talents and the intelligence of their group, and they should have the capability to unlock the potential of the human beings which they have, the team, and they should focus on the big ideas, on the challenges of the that situation or that thing, and also they should focus on the how to deal with those challenges, and on the combined goal, on the vision of the that particular collaboration. So these are the skills of the coordinator. They should keep the group on the task. They should motivate all the members of the group and make sure everyone gets a fair turn to come and express their views and to share their experiences, and that everyone come with a decision. It means the participation, the involvement of all is required for this collaboration, and they should get involved, talk, do, listen, and then create something. So this slide presents some of the collaborative behaviors. That is, one should focus on the issues, not on the people only, and then they should explain, educate, and focus on the interest and not on the positions. They should understand the interest. They should respect the role and responsibilities of the others. They should trust. They use consensus to decide. Not my decision is the final decision. This behavior is not required. So think collaboratively, decide collaboratively, and of course sustain that relationship with some type of social events and celebrate the this achievement. So going dinner, together before a session or doing any collaborating or discussing with tea or snacks. So this kind of things, they inspire, they motivate the people to do something with the collaboration and for the betterment of the society and betterment for the all. Now, what kind of collaboration is required at this time of pandemic situation? So first, before going to the collaboration at different levels, few slides on the process of collaboration. What elements are required for a collaborative process? First of all, that environment. What kind of environment is required? So assessing or evaluating the environment for collaboration is the first step. Then creating the vision, and then motivating the people towards that vision, and building the trust between the different members of that particular group, then sharing the powers, and also developing the synergy of the people of that organization or the community, and then developing the people, motivating them and guiding them, helping them, mentoring them, and then self-reflection of each and everyone is required. So in this way, these are the key elements for any process of collaboration. That is the invitation, then conversation, then decision, and then implementation. The first step is to coming together. Then communication is the first step, coming together and sharing the ideas, and then staying together. Many skills are required to stick together, and then going together for that new achievement, for innovation, for new creation. So these are the process of any collaboration. First step is the looking for the cooperation. Then one finds, yes, there is some opportunity to collaborate for cooperation, then treat as a cooperator, then becomes cooperative, and then this is the cyclic process of collaboration. And the collaboration, there are three pillars of collaboration, and these three pillars are communication, cooperation, and coordination. So first, a person connect with others for collaboration, communicate, and then collaborate, and the last stage is the co-creation. So it means the co-creation. For the co-creation, the first step is to connect people. That's why the important element of collaboration is the connection. This presents the group development stage, how a group is formed for collaboration. So these are the 4 steps. First is the forming, storming, norming, and performing. The co-creation is the performing stage. So for the communication stage is the formation of the group. Then it goes forward towards the cooperation, and then collaborate, where mission is defined, and all the work is divided and collaborated, and lastly the performance is come, that is the product is resulted. And coming to the different levels of collaboration at this time, Professor Mazumdar, she was talking about the sustainable development goals, and there are 17 sustainable development goals, as we all know, and we have to achieve these goals till 2030. And the goal 17, it emphasizes on strengthening the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. It means the connection is required between beyond the boundaries for all, for the for benefit of all. That connection is required between the countries. Is required between the countries. How a country, more than one country, they can collaborate for the betterment of the society, for the betterment of the all. So collaboration scope is there for all the countries. Then coming to the next, collaboration is also required at the government level between the industry and the university, and also if the students, keeping in mind the center is for the students, for the benefit of the students, the universities and the industry, they can collaborate, and also the government for the betterment of the students, for the betterment of the future of the students. because this is the stage of really we are all are in a very dangerous or in a careful situation. So we are in a stress. So international university collaboration can also be done. All the universities of the world, they can collaborate, they can research together, they can share their views, they can share their experiences. This is also a platform where the different the professionals from the different universities, we all are collaborating for the benefit of the students, and of course for the collaboration of different universities. Some attributes are required, some kind of framework how we can collaborate. That framework is required, so we have to work on that how we can collaborate to the different universities, how we can go for we can search in different areas for the benefit of all. So this is the way we can collaborate. And for the collaborative learning, there is social presence is there, and cognitive presence is there, and of course the digital space, the technology is there, and in the center is the collaborative learning. We will experience this collaborative learning with an practical example. So there should be collaboration between the artificial intelligence and the human intelligence. So still here we are collaborating these two components, and it is very much required at this time. For the online education, teaching skills is required on one hand, and on the other hand, technological arrangements and the skills associated with the technology is also required. So the collaboration of all these two components is also required. And collaboration of the curriculum for the development of a new curriculum, collaboration is required between the universities, between the institutions, between the research institutions. They can collaborate and create some new curriculum. And also there should be combination of the different pedagogies of learning. So blended, for next few days we are going towards the blended mode of learning, where face-to-face mode and online teaching mode, there is a combination. These two should be added, and we should go towards the blended mode of learning. And of course there should be collaboration between the home, between the and the school. So the role of parent is will change and is changing, because the role of parent, they have the responsibility. The responsibility of parent is increased due to this pandemic situation. They have to take care of their children. So the collaboration is needed for between the parents and the teachers, the school and the home, for the betterment of the student or the child. And if the teacher and parents, they collaborate, then we have the successful students. And there are some strategies of collaboration. We have also talked about these strategies, but connection is required between the parent and the teacher and the student. If really we want benefit, we want to do something good for our students, then connection is required between these three components. And also we should utilize all available resources for this kind of collaboration. Now coming to the collaborative learning, there are various tools and techniques which are being used for the collaboration. Even at this online platform, we use different kinds of techniques and apps for collaboration. How we can use, I will show you. For in the collaborative learning, in this situation, there is a movement from me to we. The students, even the teachers, they are the co-learners in this situation. So and there is a co-creation of the knowledge. So the students combine themselves, they share their ideas, and they co-create something new, and very effective, in a very effective manner. How we will discuss, I will show you. And then these are some kinds of strategies which can be used for as a collaborative learning in the classroom. One strategy is think, pair and share, where the students, they share their views, they share their ideas in pair. They think independently and then they share their ideas, and in groups also collaborative learning can be done. Now, this collaborative environment is required. There are ideas with individuals, with the ideas when combined, they produce the best idea. So for the best idea, for the betterment, the ideas of different people, different students, that should be combined. And this should use this collaboration in education. So some of the components of collaborative learning is assigning students their mixed ability teams. So preparing teams with mixed ability and establishing positive interdependence between the team, that the students, they are dependent on each other, and then teaching cooperative and social skills. Also the individual accountability should be given, and they should reflect their ideas and their creation and group process function. So all these are the components of good collaborative learning. In this online education, the students are very much connected to each another. So there are two situations. In one situation, there is a physical space and there is a bounded online, there is a limitation that they cannot combine each other, they cannot share. But in an open online spaces, there is a scope to connect with each other. So for online collaborative learning, some behaviors are required. These are the clarifying, identifying the problems, and then listening, at carefully understanding the teacher perception and the perception of the other members of that group, and then reflecting, then verifying the teacher's perception. Everyone reflects on the perception of the teacher, on the concept of the teacher, and then present themselves, the supervisor point, and then also their own point, and then clarifying all these things, and the last, they co-create the knowledge or the product or what they want to do. And in this way, this open pedagogy is also a collaborative approach of learning. I'm not going detail in this open pedagogy. It combines this. There is openness in the pedagogy. So pedagogy is it includes all the activities which a teacher designs and implement during the transaction or during the teaching learning process. So when the openness is provided during the pedagogical process, this is the kind of open pedagogy. And at this situation, or after this post COVID-19, this open pedagogy, it will flourish, or it will come into existence, or it will be very beneficial for the society. Yes, there are few C's for this collaboration. I'm not going to discuss here more. Collaboration of the teacher is also required. Collaboration, that the few teachers, they can collaborate and co-teach the students. It is very good to ask for the teachers of other universities, of other countries also. So please come to my class and teach my students. Come to my students, I will go to your class and I will teach to your students. So this is a wonderful situation. So to collaborate, so teachers can collaborate, the pedagogy can be collaborated and also utilized, and the different resources which are available to the persons, they can also be used in a very effective manner for the collaboration. Yes, we can also collaborate for the knowledge community. Then the role of the teacher will change, how to use these kind of experiences and the inputs and the talents and the intelligence and the artificial intelligence and the resources and the technology, and to create a knowledge community. So again, the collaboration is required in a very broader sense. So teamwork is, so collaboration between the students, between the regulators and all different can be. Hello. Okay, I'm coming to the last. This is the last slide. Am I audible? Please confirm.
Yes, madam, you are audible. Actually, our this meeting will be over. This link will be
Hello.
inactive after. Madam, can you hear me? Hello. Hello, this is Pankaj. Madam, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So,
madam.
am I
Actually,
audible?
yeah,
Yeah,
you are audible. Our this link will be inactive after 1:15. I'm sorry, I'm stopping in between. We actually initially we took little extra time. So if you could conclude and then we could take the
Yeah,
question.
I will conclude.
Sorry
Yes,
again,
yes.
madam.
Within
Sorry. Okay.
no problem. So I'm trying to. My slides are over now. I'm just trying to show my this collaborative learning in a practical way. May I proceed?
Yes, madam. We have only 15 minutes in hand to take the question and propose the vote
Yeah,
of
yeah,
thanks.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay,
So
okay, okay.
if you could conclude in say 5 minutes and then we can go ahead with other things. Because
Okay,
after,
okay. So please share. Okay, no problem. You share my this link to the all the participants.
okay, sure.
So which one you are saying? Please confirm me. You are saying nearpod or padded? Which one is are you sharing?
Actually, I'm not sure, madam, because after 1:15 the line will cut because the meeting will be over. So I don't know.
No. I'm just telling you. This share this link. Okay, I'm sharing this link to the participants.
Okay.
I request to the
Yes,
participants, please click
yes.
on the link. I request all the participants to click on the link. Go there and respond. In the chat box, I have shared that link. So go there and respond. Anyone? How a noise is co-created, I'm showing you. So yes, someone is there. 1 minute. Yes, very well. You can hear my voice also. You can respond here. Yes. One more response. Anything else? You can type. You can add your voice also. Yes. One more. Nice, ma'am. Good. Very informative lecture, ma'am. I'm receiving your responses. So here you are responding, but you can also use this approach in your teaching. You can give your concept. You can nice one, ma'am. It's very interesting. Good. So I'm approving this, and it is the skill of the teacher which can be used. Yes, nice and informative session. So you are responding there, and it is being reflected here. You can see. Thank you. Very informative presentation by you. So I'm reading all because all the responses are anonymous. Your name is not here because you are not signing. That's why your name is not being reflected here. One more activity I want to share with you. I'm just giving you another link. Just you have to click on that link and giving the next link. How you can make your online teaching very interesting, collaborative, and interactive. So I have shared the next link. You click on that link and respond there. You type your name. Okay, I'm waiting for the class. You respond, just type your name and don't download. Go for continue and write something. Yes, there are 6. Okay, Anamika, Darbanga, Arvinder Kaur, Happy, Jamatia, Losultian, Happy, and Pooja Kumari, Sonal Verma all have joined in my class. So you can write something, you can share your image also. So write something and share. You have joined in my class, you write something and share. I have just given a concept of collaboration that together we work, that people work for the success. So one of the students, he or she has reflected as aggregate. So you write something and aggregate. So 23 persons have joined immediately. Now reflect also. Yes, Suraj Dhanak, nice. You can write and reflect also. And immediately it will be reflected here. Post, pending post, please reflect. So these are the things which can be used by a teacher for a collaborative learning. Okay, thanks. There are 26 participants. They have joined. Sabyasachi, Nina Mehrotra, Somnath, Sugit. Okay, thanks to all of you for joining. You can post here also, and that will be reflected immediately here. And what you want to say on my concept, that will be reflected here. And joining all the ideas of all the participants, we can create something new knowledge. Pankaj sir, I want 2 minutes more.
Sure, madam.
Okay.
Sure, madam.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going for the next one. How the knowledge can be co-created, I will present that. Okay. And this tool is the Jamboard, Google Jamboard, and it is very simple to use. I am presenting here. This is how a knowledge can be co-created. I just try to explain this. So is it visible?
Yes,
Is it
yes,
visible? Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So I told to my students, what you understand by the concept of environment, just draw it. So one of the student, he or she draw this type of image. It is very light, that animal is there, and mountain with sun, and there is a house. It is being presented. Hello.
We can't see the presentation at the moment, madam. Yeah, now it's there. Now it's there.
Just presenting. Okay, so the people, the students can use these. The left hand, there are so many kinds of tools of pen that can be used by the students, and there is also a sticky notes. You can write here something. Yes, agreed. That this is the concept of environment and save, and it will be saved here. So so many kind of sticky notes can be added. So one of the students, she presented the environment in this picture, and then
it is a very much component of MNREGA is 1/3 participation of open should be ensured. But based of my knowledge, it is more than maybe 70 or 80%. So at any cost, we should continue this program, which will help the livelihood of rural women. And about all these schemes, which I mentioned already about this Ujjwala Yojana and other things, I think it can be extended to women above BPL level also. And for HDG, this debt facility should be extended. That should also be extended. And also we have to rethink about the beneficiary among the women beneficiary. That target should be more for more women to be the beneficiary. And that is actually in pandemic situation to satisfy the needs of the family, women's participation and women's beneficiary list should be more. So that already I mentioned mentioned in my lecture that when women is empowered, the entire family is empowered. And in case of nutrition, health, and education of the children, who are the future of our country, that will be satisfied and fulfilled by this attempt. And to this angle, actually, for appointment also, for example, recently I can mention this TSL appointment, 10% have been reserved for women section. But earlier it was 5.7 only in police officials. But recently this step has been taken, and this is praiseworthy. Very welcome attempt. And every time, everywhere, I think this facility should be extended. At all India level also, we have seen some attempt on that on this appointment of women commission, police commission, army, women's role has been extended. Okay, Pankaj, your time is.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Is there any question from Madam Seema? We'll take one question, and then we'll go to the next part of the webinar. I think participants are saying that the session was very interesting. What I suggest is we'll share with you the email address of, if the speakers are okay with that, with the participants. And if you have more questions, you can ask and interact with the speakers. Is it okay, madam? Can I share your email address with the participants? Madam Seema and Madam Chandrika, madam, both of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Then
I can also share.
For collaboration, it is required.
Yes,
It is
madam.
much
Okay.
required.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, madam. Now I request our Honorable Vice Principal of Holy Cross College, Dr. Father Shaji MLCSC, Vice Principal and Administrator of Holy Cross College, Agartala, to propose the vote of thanks. Over to Father Shaji.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Dear esteemed and eminent resource persons from across the world, and our beloved enthusiastic participants, very good afternoon to all of you. We were indeed blessed with a galaxy of scholars from India and abroad, and we have been listening to such a wonderful insights, very professional, well researched and well articulated from all the resource persons. We know for education, no option except education. Collaboration of stakeholders and technology has become an inevitable paradigm in teaching, learning, and research. We see and identify infinite opportunities and strategies for greater collaboration and sharing the resources with much generosity and concern. We are learning to transcend our own little geographical boundaries, technology, and limited resources for better education and better learning system. With these few words, I place on record the great contribution made by all the resource persons. On behalf of Holy Cross College, Management Administration, Principal Father Benny, the IQAC team led by Dr. Pankaj and assisted by Dr. Sushaban, and entire college family, both faculty and students, I wish to express my sincere gratitude. To begin with, I offer our gratitude to our most beloved Professor Satyendu Poddar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, MBB University, Agartala. Thank you, sir, for discussing on the impact of pandemic situation on education and students, and how to use a collaborative approach and technological aid to solve it to
some extent or great extent. Thank you, sir, for being a great source of inspiration for us, great friend, great well-wisher, and a permanent member of Holy Cross family. Thank you, Professor, for that. Professor Daniel from King's College, USA, spent the best part of his night for sharing his wisdom, concern for the cause of education. Thank you, Professor, for highlighting the impact of this pandemic on universities and other educational institutions. Also, thank you for giving valuable suggestions on solving them. Thank you, Professor Daniel Klasky. Next, I offer my sincere gratitude to Dr. Marcin from Poznań University of Medical Science, Poland. We are grateful to you, Professor, for highlighting abnormalities in this time of epidemic and the challenges in teaching and research and learning. Thank you for highlighting the new opportunities in teaching and research and in their beneficial effect. A big thank you to Professor Marcin. I also offer our bunch of gratitude with great appreciation to Professor Christopher from King's College, USA, for spending your valuable time for all of us and the students community across the world. Thank you, Professor, for addressing on the new educational environment getting created and for providing suggestions on encountering, and thanks for discussing how crossing borders and reading landscapes can embody the power and purpose of liberal arts. Thank you, our beloved Professor Christopher. We are extremely grateful to Professor Chandrika Majumdar, who is a constant support for Holy Cross College in manifold ways, a life member of Holy Cross family, and we draw numerous inspiration from you. Thank you, ma'am, for your oration on discrimination faced by women and how this time of epidemic has made it more challenging to tackle them. Thank you, ma'am, for addressing gender inequality in education with numerical facts, figures, and discussions, and also mentioning steps to overcome them. Thank you very much and continue to bless Holy Cross family by your person and by your good wishes. I also extend profound gratitude to Professor Seema Dhawan from HNB Central University, Uttarakhand, India. Ma'am has really completed almost one semester syllabus in a very profound manner, and I am sure it has benefited a lot of students and faculty members. Your presence, your presentation was very scientific and very professional. Thank you very much, and we are very sure that numerous people will continue to be connected with you for your expertise. Thank you very much, ma'am Seema Dhawan. We also place on record the leadership of Father Benny K. John, the principal of the college, for leading from friend to take the Holy Cross College to greater heights. I sincerely thank Dr. Pankaj Chakravarti